They're not there, it's just low. That's how you know. You cannot ring the bell. The horse is already out of the barn, right?
Hey, my friend, how are we doing? How are you? Great. Good. Very good. Hi. How are you doing?
Yeah, tell people that that's exactly what we're looking for.
You need something?
No, I'm here in case you need to.
Okay.
We are.
Looks like you brought your bag.
Didn't help me last time I presented. Yeah. The trick is reboot before you come in. Start fresh. Clear your memory. I think. It doesn't hurt. Almost a terabyte on a hard drive. And I tried to recover it on my own. Yeah, they did.
Sorry, I took my sister-in-law to dinner first because I really was to work ago, so we came down and I thought we could go to dinner at night with her. So she'll be like here real fast.
I had 3 drives on the other side. Just red. They said, you know, you can probably do it. It's very with something like some forensics, whatever.
We would like to call this meeting to order and appreciate having everyone here. We would like to begin by having the invocation by Lloyd Evans and the Pledge of Allegiance by Scout Troop 456. So if Lloyd could come forward.
Our kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we ask Thee to be with us at this time as items for the city are discussed, that it may be done in a reverent manner. We're thankful for the opportunity we have of sharing ideas in a city council meeting. We ask Thy blessings be with everybody. They may return home and safely. And this we say in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Lloyd, and thank you, Scout Troop 456. I'm sorry. If the Scout Troop could come back up here, Councilmember Sumner has a little something for you to eat.
Brent's one up in us, guys. That's the bad part.
He has to do this. It's his neighborhood. Brent takes good care of his neighborhood. Thank you, Brent. We'd now like to go on to the approval of minutes. We'd like to approve the minutes of City Council Retreat February 9th through the 10th, 2018, City Council meeting February the 13th, 2018, and the City Council meeting of February the 27th, 2018. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We would like to make mention that Councilmember Larray is in Hawaii and not available here this evening, and we miss her and hope that she'll come back soon. We'd like to go to our upcoming events. On March the 29th, this Thursday, we have the Utah Valley Chamber of Commerce Pillar of the Valley at 7 p.m. at the Convention Center. April the 10th, we have a Quick Quack Car Wash Ribbon Cutting, 11:30 a.m., 1600 North State. April the 21st, we have the Sunset Heights East Neighborhood Picnic at noon. On April the 25th through the 27th, we have the Utah League of Cities and Towns Mid-Year Conference in St. George. On May the 3rd, we have the City of Orem Public Works Building Geneva Road Area-Wide Plan at 6 p.m. at the Public Works Building. On May the 19th, we have the Miss Orem Scholarship Pageant at 7 p.m. at the Cirrus Center for the Arts. And May the 28th, we have our Memorial Day program at 9 a.m. at the City Cemetery. We have a resolution that I would like to read, and this is honoring Donna Weaver, who has served diligently since 1997 as a deputy city recorder and then later as the city recorder. I would like to read, whereas Donna R. Weaver was hired by the City of Orem on January the 13th, 1997 to fill the position of deputy city recorder. And whereas Donna R. Weaver performed the duties of the deputy city recorder with excellence and supported the city recorder with skill and competence. And whereas upon the retirement of Melody Downey, city recorder, Donna R. Weaver was promoted to the position of city recorder on May 13th, 2001. And whereas Donna R. Weaver has been employed by the City of Orem for 21 years and 2 months, providing support for the mayor, the city council, the city staff, and the general public. And whereas Donna R. Weaver was a leader in her field through her involvement and certification in the Utah Municipal Clerks Association and the International Institute of Municipal Clerks. And whereas Donna R. Weaver has served 5 mayors, 25 city council members, 3 city managers, as well as oversaw 11 municipal elections and assisted in 10 county-wide elections. And whereas Donna R. Weaver is a veteran of the U.S. Army, a world traveler, an award-winning author, and a black belt in karate, and whereas Donna R. Weaver has decided to retire her position as city recorder to be effective on March 30th, 2018, Now therefore be it resolved that Melody Downey, the Orem Mayor and City Council, City staff, and friends join together in expressing appreciation to Donna R. Weaver for her years of exemplary service as an employee of the City of Orem. We wish Donna R. Weaver much success and happiness in her future endeavors. Read in the Orem City Council meeting this 27th day of March 2018. Do we have a motion to pass this resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So we want to have Donna Weaver come forward, and I would like to have our picture taken.
Speech.
No opposing votes.
Well done.
Donna has done a wonderful job. Again, we thank you, Donna, for your wonderful efforts in keeping the city council going and recording the minutes and getting everything done within the city. So there's a lot of work that a city recorder does that many of us don't even realize. So again, thank you. We now would like to go on to a report on the Sleepy Ridge Golf Course, and Carl Hurst and Golden Holt, if you'd come forward.
Mayor and City Council, you're aware of this, but for those in the audience, Orem City has a unique relationship with golf. The Orem City owns the ground under Sleepy Ridge Golf Course, but Sleepy Ridge Golf Course developed the course and runs the operation day to day for them. It's been a very beneficial relationship. I hope Golden would say the same thing. But from the city standpoint, we think that is a very unique and a very beneficial relationship. And we bring Sleepy Ridge in each year to report on the status of golf and the status of the course. So Golden Holt is here to do that report.
Mayor, Council, it's always good to see you. Like Don, I've been here a few times, a few years. It's not that new to me anymore. It's just another report, another year. Similar Groundhog Day a little bit. And Groundhog Days are okay when they're on a good trajectory, and that's where we've been for many years after kind of struggling out of the gate. Really appreciate your staff and the committee, golf committee that we meet with twice a year. Just great insight and great support from the city side to our side being on the private side. Governor Herbert helped get this going. Back to Jim Reeves, John Park, Bruce Chestnut, now Jamie. A lot of history there, but it's been really a model, I believe, as to how public-private operations should work. And it's not obviously in the golf world, but I know the government in general is looking a lot more at those creative solutions to solve pressing problems. And you guys probably did it first, so they should call you on how to do it. We've obviously had our ups and downs out of the gate in 2008 and all of that, but we're on firm footing, and golf continues to be pretty flat. I've reported this before, but operating a golf course, our revenues are always right around $900,000 to $1 million, and it costs about $900,000 to run a golf course. So, you know, you don't get rich at it, but it obviously is something that the community enjoys, and it's a great asset of green space and other things in the community. When we were in the middle of trying to finish Sleepy Ridge, maybe in a blessed way, we had some pause and hesitation and changed the plan to where we built our bigger clubhouse, which I kind of present as we kind of came up with the 3-for-1 concept. Instead of just having golf and having to have revenues of golf support golf in a tough real estate world of probably too many golf courses because of real estate, we ended up, through a couple of years of support of the city and discussion, building our bigger grand clubhouse that I'm sure you've all been to. And so our second and third operation are the offices, which we have 20,000 square feet. I know Council McDonald knows a lot about that business, but it's been steady. It's been good to have that. Who wouldn't want to have an office on a golf course? So that's been a nice center of revenue on the rent side there. And then the third part, which I've said many times is kind of the leftover part, but we're grateful we did it, is the wedding and event business. And again, who wouldn't want to have a great wedding and event on a golf course at a facility like ours? Last year we set a record, 256 weddings.
Wow.
And we're really proud about that, not just in terms of the quantity, but to have that many people from Orem and surrounding communities have one of the best days or the best day of their life at our facility and share that with them is pretty cool to do that. And obviously it keeps our place fresh. We do things there in a presentation way with flowers and gazebos and other things that you wouldn't do with golf alone because there wouldn't be enough revenue to support it. So the 3-in-1 business approach, which we also did collectively with the city, has really been a good thing. And without the 3-for-1, we probably would be having a lot different discussions. So we're happy where we're at. We're glad Tiger Woods is back. He's good for golf. Somehow that brings a few more golfers out thinking they're going to be the next Tiger or something. But golf is a interesting business. There's so many things for people to do with their time now where I don't see golf hitting any high trajectory of more. So you've got to be creative and you got to put a good product out there. We're obviously convenient. We're probably now the most center golf course in the valleys, so time is valuable. So to come down and play 9 holes or 18 holes makes Sleepy Ridge, I think, more viable than perhaps other courses in the county or other places in the country. So again, on firm foundation and firm ground, and I've got great staff, and working with the city, we just kind of plug along and keep doing what we're doing. So I'm glad to report good things. Happy to answer any questions you might have about the course.
So a couple questions. How many weddings did you have last year? And then how is your youth program as far as golf goes?
Wedding business, we've always been trending up. It was interesting because we thought we hit our peak 2 years ago at 234. And we attributed that to the sister missionary campaign with the church, because they were sucked out of the potential wedding bride business for 18 months, and then they came back. And so we were like at 200 flatline, and then they came back and we went to 234. Last year, not this previous year I'm talking about, but the year before last, we went back down to 200. So this year, we went 234, 200, and now we spiked to 254, and the sisters are all back. So I think business is good. It's a good economy, and people know about Sleepy Ridge. We're obviously the number one choice to have a wedding. I wish I had more Friday and Saturday nights, but it's kind of a limited business in that regard. To the youth golf, we just hired a new golf pro that we're really excited about. His name's Steve Merritt. He came from the Mountain View golf course in Salt Lake out of the county system. So very municipal, organized, and driven. And Mountain View is not any course to brag about, but they had 110 men's association members and 80 women's association members, and their big focus was junior golf. We've done junior golf, but it's been limited to a weekend camp a year. And I'd like to see a much more aggressive junior golf program, not just in the name of goodwill, but those junior golf becomes your customers, in the years to come. So Steve's done a lot of that, and we've already talked about kind of upping our game as far as a focus on junior golf.
Cool. Thank you for that. Any other questions from the council? Councilmember Spencer.
So what is an average wedding cost at the
Sleepy Ridge? We've been really or demand and supply with our concept. So you can have a wedding base rent, which includes the room and chairs and tables and that kind of thing, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday for $1,000 to $1,500. Thursday goes up to $1,700, $1,800, and then Friday and Saturdays go up to $2,200 to $2,500. And there's even adjustments depending the time of the year. 70% of the weddings happen May to August, so you kind of have peaks of summer that have higher demands than winter. So we have a little bit of, supply and demand to our price points, but it's very comparable. In this market, you have to be competitive. So I don't think we're that much higher than others. But we're probably busier than others.
Oh, that's nice. Very nice facility.
Yeah.
Councilman McDonald has a question.
And you don't make them decorate a basketball hoop either, do you?
Well, they get a discount if they bring the hoops. Okay. So.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, we just thank you for the good work that's going on, and have a great, viable golf course out there. I know a lot of citizens really enjoy it. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. We'll now go on to the personal appearance portion of our meeting. And we have one person, Vic Morris, who would like to speak. Would ask that you, when you come to the podium, give us your name and hold your comments to 3 minutes.
He'll be speaking during the public hearing for CDBG.
Okay, fine. Then we will close the personal appearance portion of our meeting and move on to a public hearing, and this is to receive public comment on the Community Development Block Grant projected use of funds for fiscal year 2018-19, and Steve Downs is our presenter. And Steve, can you introduce the person with you?
I will. Mayor, Council, this is Vicki Johnson. Vicki this year has chaired our CDBG Citizen Advisory Commission, and so her and a group of citizens have spent many evenings and many days visiting these organizations, but hearing presentations from all of them about their proposed use for the CDBG funding. I'm going to just do a quick overview of the program, but I'm going to let Vicki take lead in talking about each of these organizations and what they are asking for the funding. We'll just do a quick overview. Again, this kicks off a 30-day period where citizens can comment about the proposed allocation of projected use. We will come back at the beginning of May and do another presentation much similar to this, where we can again go into more detail about the specifics. We can answer any questions tonight as well. But a little bit of background: for over 40 years, about 45 years, communities around the United States with populations over 50,000 have been eligible to apply as a entitlement community for an allocation of community development block grant money from the federal government. This is intended to help stabilize and improve low-income neighborhoods and give them resources they need, which you'll see how that plays out in our allocation proposal. Our allocation historically has been about $600,000. Last year it was increased to about $637,000 and change, and we're projecting a similar allocation this year of $630,000. We were able to bring money forward from each year. So the allocation in total, it will be $867,994, made up of what you see below. We have some CDBG Commission members, again, that have dedicated a lot of time, and we're really appreciative of the interest that they've shown in our community, but also in these organizations that benefit our community. Tom Walsh, Chris Bennett, Russ Bird, Vicki Johnson, of course, who's here with me, Jenny Ball, who's also here in the audience, and Ken Ransom, and we were unable to fill one of those spots this year. With that, I'll turn the time over to Vicki.
What do you want me to do?
So just read just the organization and the proposal.
So you just want me to read that?
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. The Center for Women and Children in Crisis, I actually had an opportunity to visit this facility, and their mission is to provide a caring, advocating, safe, and educationally based environment for survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. They asked for $10,000 this year. The number of unduplicated people served with requested funds is 37, and it is our recommendation to grant them $10,000.
So I have a question there. That's the facility in Provo, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And do you know if they're receiving funding from Provo this year? Because last year they did not.
I don't know if they've made that final decision for this year, but yeah, we do know that last year they did not receive CDBG funding from the City of Provo.
Right.
Well, the next one is the Family Support and Treatment Center. Their mission is to build a community of healthy, happy individuals and families through education and the prevention and treatment of child abuse, trauma, and other personal and family concerns. They requested $15,000. Number of unduplicated people with requested funds is 40, and we are recommending $11,000. Project READ provides one-on-one tutoring services to 100 functionally illiterate adults in Utah County each year and changes lives through literacy by empowering individuals, strengthening families, and building community. They have asked for $7,500. Number of unduplicated people with requested funds is 100, and we are recommending $5,000. The Parent Education Resource Center, PERC, is a free lending library of learning aids. Its purpose is to help provide parenting skills to improve parent involvement in their children's education and to support families in this process. All items for checkout are geared toward teaching children or the adults working with them in a wide range of subject areas. They are asking for $2,000. The number of unduplicated people with requested funds is 1,000, and we're recommending $2,000. The Community Action Services and Food Bank is dedicated to fostering self-reliance in individuals, families, and communities. They have asked for $17,000. The number of unduplicated people with requested funds is 2,900, and we are recommending $12,500. The Literacy Resources are an organization which serves the Utah County community, tutoring children and adults who are below grade level in reading and writing skills. They are asking for $3,600. The number of unduplicated people with requested funds is 50, and we are recommending $1,000.
One thing I'll mention about this organization actually was denied funding last year because of some challenges with record keeping and who they were serving. Over the last year, they've kind of reinvented their program and have actually developed a partnership with Suncrest Elementary to bring in volunteers from BYU to tutor individuals at Suncrest. It's quite neat what they've been able to put together. I did speak with the principal to make sure that it was as was represented in the presentation, and that principal is very appreciative of what Ruth Pratt, who runs this organization here in Orem, has organized at Suncrest Elementary. And they have started already with 12, but anticipate a lot of growth as a lot of the individuals in that school don't go home to households that can help them with their reading and writing. And so this organization, it's been neat to kind of see them reinvent themselves a little bit as to what they do.
It'll be a great location for that work. So,
the recreation and I can't say that.
Habilitation.
Habilitation.
I can't say that. Services.
RA.
Sorry. RA is a private, nonprofit organization that provides a variety of services and supports to people with disabilities. We help our participants develop greater independence, social awareness, confidence, and social well-being, which helps them to become fully participating members of their community. They have asked for $12,285. The number of unduplicated people with requested funds is 50, and we are recommending $8,500. The Mountain Lands Community Health Center, their mission is for many individuals in the community we serve, access to affordable and appropriate health care is limited. Our mission is to provide low-income, uninsured, and underinsured individuals with high quality health care. We believe that everyone in our community is benefited as access to appropriate and affordable health care is provided to those who face the most significant barriers to care. They are asking for $15,000. The number of unduplicated people with requested funds is 150, and we are recommending $4,500. The Friends of the Utah County Children's Justice Center. What is their mission? The Children's Justice Center is a home-like facility which serves children and families who are experiencing the crisis and chaos that comes with the disclosure of significant physical or sexual abuse of a child. They are asking for $20,000. The number of unduplicated people with requested funds is 133, and we are recommending $13,000. $15,000.
We'll clarify that at the end. If that was.
I think it's 15. Friends of the Coalition. Our mission is to implement tangible solutions for poverty in Utah County, engage with the community to create opportunities for social change, and balance compassion with personal responsibility. They are asking for $8,000. Number of unduplicated people with requested funds is 4,000, and we are recommending $8,000. The Community Health Connect, our mission is to improve access to quality health and dental care for low-income, uninsured men, women, and children in Utah County. We accomplish this goal through the coordination of a volunteer provider network, providing health education and maximizing existing community resources. They have asked for $5,000. The number of unduplicated people with requested funds is 20, and we're recommending $4,000. Kids on the Move, their mission is we serve low-income families and expectant mothers that are in need of parenting support. We support healthy family functioning and literacy and nurturing parent-child interaction. By creating a positive model, we help families track their children's development and gain self-sufficiency. They have asked for $20,000. The number of unduplicated people with requested funds is 88, and we are recommending $5,000. People Helping People is dedicated to reducing the number of children living in poverty by teaching low-income women, primarily single moms, how to earn a living wage. They have asked for $6,000. Number of unduplicated people with requested funds is 36, and we're recommending $2,000. Rocky Mountain University of Health Professionals. Their mission is to provide physical therapy to uninsured and unserved citizens of Orem through their community rehabilitation clinic. They have asked for $5,000. Number of unduplicated people with requested funds is 100, and we are recommending $3,000. Ability First, their mission is providing independence for people with disabilities. They have asked for $5,000. The number of unduplicated people with requested funds is 227, and our recommendation is $3,000. House of Hope. Their mission is to provide addiction recovery and behavioral health services that help reclaim and rebuild lives, strengthen families, instill accountability, and promote personal growth. They have asked for $5,000. There's no number of unduplicated people with requested funds is not available, and we are recommending $3,500. Turn Community Services. Turn supports people in residential settings that are customized to provide the exact level of services that individual needs or desires. In all settings, supports can include activities of daily living, self-care and hygiene, medical needs management, community participation, socialization and leisure skills, personal funds management, and transportation. They have asked for $50,000. Number of unduplicated people with requested funds, not applicable.
Yeah, there's a couple, but these are construction type projects. Some help in the kitchen for House of Hope, and some improvements to the ramps and the physical facility. And so we don't list the people because they're not specifically serving individuals. They're working on a facility.
I'd just like to mention that Turn does a wonderful job in our community working with adult day care and helping to develop these individuals. I've been to many of their meetings and seen the artwork that the people are turning out and the activities they're doing, and they just do a wonderful job. We typically have Miss Inspiration come from Turn. I'm not sure if Mr. Inspiration comes from Turn as well, but it's just a wonderful service they provide. So I fully support that.
They blend into the community well, too, into their neighborhoods, their facilities. We were recommending $15,000 for them. You want me to do the city stuff?
I can speak to these. There's some requests that come from the city each year. Of the $637,000 that we received last year, only 15% is allowed to go to these what they call public services, which is therapy and feeding those in hunger. There's other resources to help those as well, but of CDBG, 15%. So the other money goes to other types of projects, and 20% is allowed to go to the administration, and that pays for salaries and benefits of the employees of the City of Orem that work on this, also training, supplies, anything that relates to the program that the City of Orem does is counted in this 20%. So the ask was $120,000, which is below the 20%, but it's what we feel like we need to run the program. We also have a Section 108 loan payment that we have and will continue for another 8 to 9 years, I believe. That this was made years ago to as an economic development tool to bring jobs to Orem. It has served that purpose. This is just this funding just makes our annual payment. So the ask is $108,994. We recommended that full payment. So there's also public facilities. So we've asked for $250,000 to do some construction in some of our low-income neighborhoods. The specific project hasn't yet been identified as we work through those areas, but we've tried, and our hope is to work in these playgrounds and really invest in the property that we own in those facilities to hopefully build up those communities. And so we asked for $250,000. Because of the amount of money available, the recommendation was a little bit higher for $285,000. We also use a portion of this money to pay for our code enforcement officers. This year we'll be adding some additional officers to our code enforcement program, our NPU, Neighborhood Preservation. This request of $155,000 pays for a portion of the salaries and benefits of those 4 officers.
So do you know what we spent on this last year?
$130,000.
Okay.
Out of CDBG money, but
I realize that's not all of it. I was just curious how much.
Yeah, we spend about 50% of our time, our code enforcement officers, in these low-income neighborhoods. 50% of their calls are there, and so, but by that we would be allowed to spend pay for 50% of their salaries through this program. We ask for about 25% just because there are other needs that need to be met. This also, in the last couple of years, has incorporated our mental health unit into this neighborhood preservation unit, as oftentimes these issues are more than somebody that just is choosing not to take care of their property, but there's other issues that are in that home. The Habitat for Humanity has also requested $25,000, and then they also continue to administer our housing rehabilitation program. And so rolling over $61,000 from last year, adding $25,000, the recommendation is $86,000 for them to continue to do this work in our communities. Well, with that, this is just a summary of those requests totaling $867,000, $867,994. So with that, any questions from the mayor?
Any comments from the council? Okay, Sam?
Question. So the number of people that are affected by each of those,
Yep.
Are those just self-reported by the different organizations and agencies? So there's...
They
Okay.
are. And those ones reflect their requests. So some of them asked for funding far above what they were granted. So that's what they started with. When they get their recommendation, those numbers will be re-reported, and all of the funding they will track that it's an Orem resident, that they meet the income qualifications, and then they track and report to us every quarter how many people they're serving that meet that criteria.
It'd be interesting to kind of see as far as how the recommendation translates into allocating this many dollars per person that it impacts, kind of thing, but not necessarily that they're all going to be apples to apples because they serve different purposes and things like that. But that might be interesting to see. And the other question I had, with Orem, soon hitting 100,000 people as residents, does that impact like what level we would be awarded an allocation from the federal government, or how does that work?
Yeah, so not necessarily just breaking the 100,000 mark, but they have been looking at our growth, and that's part of why our 600,000 in the past has moved up to about 637. In chatting with our rep in Denver, he said we can probably anticipate that 637 moving forward because of our income levels and also the number of people that we serve. So yes, as it grows, so does it. In theory, as long as our growth isn't outpaced by every other community who would take their share. I would represent, and this came up in the work session, that President Trump's original budget eliminated this program completely, what was passed this week through the Congress and Senate actually added $300 million additional dollars to what was previously allocated to this program. So we anticipate this program being around for many years to come.
So the amount that you have here doesn't reflect any significant increase from last year associated with that increase in the recent.
Correct. Yeah. Any money that comes in that's unspent, we always roll over to the next year. We always try to budget a little bit below. When we were going through these presentations, we weren't sure what the future held for the Community Development Block Grant Program. As the budget's been released, we've gotten a little clarity. So I would guess next year, we'll see what the allocation ends up being this year, but I imagine next year you'll probably see a higher number.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, this is a public hearing, so we'll go ahead and open it up to the public. Anyone who would like to speak to the CDBG program is welcome to do so. Please give us your name and hold your comments to 3 minutes. You just please come up to the podium. One at a time.
Well, I can't pass up an opportunity.
Tell me your name.
I am Dave Smith with Community Action Services Food Bank. And Mayor and Commissioners, I have a opportunity every day, as do my volunteers and staff, to hear from the people that we serve how much they appreciate what we do. The thank yous, the handshakes, the hugs, the tears, it is really gratifying, and I want to express on behalf of Karen McCandless, our director, the team at Community Action Services, our thanks for the support. We think it makes a difference in the community. We think if we can help people move towards self-sufficiency, it really matters, and it makes things better all the way around. So thank you for the support.
Thank you. Appreciate what you do and what Karen McCandless does. Thank you.
I'm Vic Morris. I'm the director of Rocky Mountain University of Health Professions Foundation, and want to express our gratitude to the Citizens Advisory Commission for once again recommending an allocation for support of our community rehabilitation clinic. The city has supported that for the past several years. The clinic is doing very well. We have many Orem citizens that come and take advantage of getting physical therapy rehabilitation there, and hopefully getting back into the workforce and being able to overcome their challenges. One of the things I want to do today, though, is, and I hope I'm not overstepping my bounds, is I wanted to thank the Mayor and City Council and the members of the Citizen Advisory Commission on behalf of all the nonprofits listed. I know many of these, and I know the great work that they're doing, and I know the impact that it's having on the underserved. And what you're doing is making a difference, and it is really improving the quality of life for these individuals. And for that, we thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Anyone else care to come forward and speak? If not, we'll close the public speaking portion of our hearing and bring it back to the council. Any comments from the council? This is not a resolution to pass. This is just the first of 2 public hearings, and so we appreciate very much the 2 of you being here and the comments and the information. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to item number 15, which is a public hearing amending a portion of Appendix A of the Orem City Code by changing Standard Land Use Code 5591, Marine Craft and Accessories, from a not permitted use to a permitted use in the CM zone, and Jason Bench is our presenter. Jason, is the applicant here at all?
Yeah, got a hand up.
Would he want to come forward?
Sure.
And sit with you? And maybe you can introduce him to us.
I'll let him introduce himself if he would.
I'm Bruce Bosley from Century Marine.
Thank you.
So tonight is a simple request to change the land use code, as mentioned, the marine craft and accessories into the CM zone. It's the Orem Business Park, if you guys are familiar with that, west of Geneva Road. Business Park Drive in the dark gray area. They are proposing to locate in this facility right there, which I'll...
Just a portion of the building, then just that?
But just, yeah, one of the spaces there, yep. And so what we're proposing is to add it as a permitted use with the condition that outside display not permitted after regular business hours. So we'll not have a permanent display of boats or other type of equipment. They'll take it in at night and then bring it out and display it like other retailers do with tires and other things like that. So Planning Commission did make a recommendation for approval, and we support that recommendation. Be glad to address any questions.
I'm just wondering if he could tell us a little bit about his business, if these are smaller boats, bigger boats, if he's in business somewhere else, what his background is, and so forth.
We've been in business. Oh, sorry. We've been in business in Mesa, Arizona for 39 years, and we had an opportunity to open up a new division up here this past year, and that's what we're in the process of doing. Our boats.
Yeah, his mic's on.
Did you hear what I said in the past? Our boats range basically in the 20 to 25 foot category. We can go up to 53 feet, but we don't expect that to be in our regime right now.
So there are some boats that are in the 15 to 17, 18 foot range, but you're kind of up above that a little bit.
The smallest boat we have is 19 foot, so basically 19 to 26 feet is where we're.
More pleasure craft than
yes.
Fishing for recreation?
No, we will have fishing also.
You will have fishing, okay.
We'll have bass boats and family runabouts.
Okay, great. Councilor McDonald has a question for you.
Are these used or new boats? And if they're new, what brand are they? New boats, and the bass boats will be Bass Cats, and the new boats will be Regals.
Any other questions from the council? Okay, well, this is a public hearing, so we'll open it up to the public. For anyone who'd like to speak, hold your comments to 3 minutes, and please give us your name. Seeing as how no one is willing or wanting to come up and speak, we'll go ahead and close the public comment portion of our public hearing and bring it back to the council. Any questions or comments from the council?
I'll ask one.
Councilmember C-Strand.
Just sales, or do you also do service, maintenance kind of stuff?
Yes, we will be doing service, so sales and service.
Okay.
We want to service what we sell.
Okay, Councilmember McDonald.
I move that the City Council by ordinance amend a portion of Appendix A of the Orem City Council City Code by changing Standard Land Use Code 5591 Marine Craft and Accessories from a non-permitted use to a permitted use in the CM zone.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll start with Councilmember. What is your name?
Spencer.
Spencer.
Aye.
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 Okay, it passes. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good luck.
We'd now like to go on to a continued item. This is amending Appendix A of the Orem City Code by changing Standard Land Use Codes 4850 Solid Waste Disposal and 5193 Scrap and Waste Materials from permitted to not permitted uses in the M1 and M2 zones. We had the public portion of our public hearing portion of this previously, so this is just a continued item. In speaking with two of the businesses that are affected by this, we're going to allow them some time, but we would like to hear from Jason Bench first.
So just a quick reminder, this is a request to eliminate these two uses out of the zone. We feel it's time and in the best interest of the city to take those and not allow any new businesses of these categories along Geneva Road in the M1 or M2 zones. So our request is that we move forward with this and make that recommendation or make that motion to do that. The Planning Commission did make a recommendation that the council approve this as requested, and staff does support that recommendation as well. So I'll be glad to address any questions or let the applicants come up, or the other business owners come up.
Any questions from the council? Okay, we have spoken with MCR and with Mike Dunn's group, and we would like to give MCR 10 minutes of time to speak at the podium, after which we'd like to give 20 minutes to Mike Dunn's group and those with him.
Steve, can go first.
So MCR will go first.
I apologize I didn't get this provided to you before, but I have a few additional documents that I will refer to as we go through this today.
So real quickly, Jason, can you identify who you have here with you?
You know, I'm bad with names, so I'll let them introduce themselves.
Yes.
I'm Shelley Magdaleno, partner, MCR.
Okay.
I'm Gary Steele, partner with MCR.
Okay, thank you.
And then I'm Lisa Hancock, their legal representative, representing today. I will speak first, and then both Shelley and Gary will take the opportunity to speak with you. We're very grateful for the opportunity to for you to hear from MCR and for our input into this change that is affecting the Geneva Road area. I think we can all agree that the growth in the Geneva Road area is pretty exciting, and it's something that all of the parties involved appreciate and welcome. And we are very pleased that the city has indicated their commitment to recycling and to working with responsible recycling facilities. As you are aware, MCR for 25 years has been very involved with the city and continues to want to be involved for the next 25 plus years and plan to be involved that way. Like I said, MCR plans to be here for a long time. The metal recycling business is booming, and like Orem City, the individuals and entities that use MCR are becoming more environmentally responsible. Moreover, metal recycling is sought after by, it's a hot commodity currently, and is sought after by commodity producers because it's cheap, fast, and environmentally responsible. Your cell phone, the majority of the metal contained in it is likely recycled metal as a result. We believe that removing SLU 5193 as a permitted use without some mechanism in place to allow existing responsible facilities like MCR Recycling to add improvements to the business will only increase the value of the Geneva Road area. Let's paint a picture. As businesses develop around the Geneva Road area, and they are allowed to build new businesses, new places for people to come to, what will it look like if MCR is not allowed to make improvements? I don't think that's what we want that area to become. I think we want to put in some sort of provision that will allow MCR to make improvements. As noted in my email to you earlier today, MCR had a 2 to 5 year improvement plan. With the booming business of metal recycling, they have looked at their finances, and their financials have increased sufficiently to where they can make that within a year plan. And they're in the position to construct a new state-of-the-art office and warehouse facility for their business. The only thing standing in their way right now is the removal of the 5193 as a permitted use, again, if there's no opportunity for them to make existing improvements. Right now, their building is in the concept stage. If you've seen the Mighty Light building on 400 North, as I referenced, that is what they're looking to put in. They want to do it parallel to Geneva Road, offices again, concept stage, fronting Geneva Road, and in the back of the building, warehouse facility, sorting, storage, and then a lot of the operations will occur behind the building off of the Geneva Road frontage. We propose a change to the amendment. I've provided you copies of our current amendment. There was a typo in the earlier one referencing the residential zone code rather than the 26-9 code, which is for manufacturing, but the residential code is a similar thing. If you look at the pages, the front page is the proposal that we propose that is very consistent with if you go to Appendix A and look, for example, at accessory apartments, you go in there and you see that there's a reference to a regulatory code, and we suggest that something similar be done with the 5193 that will allow for these existing businesses to responsibly create improvements to the property. My time is limited, and so as conclusion, we ask that 5193 remain in place as a permitted use, and if not, that some amendment be made to it, either similar to our proposed 22-9-2.1 or some other amendment to allow for time for them to work with the city to seek a different way to allow for complying facilities to make improvements. And I'll turn the time over to Shelley and Gary.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and the Commission, for hearing me. MCR has been recycling metal for the past 25 years in the same location. We've grown with Orem City over the years, taking care of its citizens and local businesses to provide safe, clean, friendly, competitive environment to recycle all types of scrap metal. I feel like we've been kind of caught in a crossfire between us, our neighbors, and ourselves, and would just like to move forward and work with the city, with Orem City and its growth. In the past 25 years doing business, we've had no complaints. In fact, we hear daily from our customers and businesses that they'd rather do business with our recycling facility because of our customer service, friendly employees, and competitive prices. I was notified just today that we won Recycling Center of the Year again, and we take great pride in that. Our facility is convenient for Orem City residents. They can recycle all their scrap metals at our yard and then go directly behind us to Orem City's recycling for glass, plastic, cardboard, and so forth. You know, we get a lot of the city's annual cleanup. They haul that into us. North Point hauls into us daily. And other businesses as well as the citizens of Orem. It's kind of a win-win situation. Orem City has a state-of-the-art metal recycling company that is already in place doing what it does best, recycling metal, handling the needs of our community. That comes at no cost to the city or its residents, and puts money back into the community from the money people make recycling. We support local recycling programs such as UVU, Habitat, North Point, the gun ranges, city cleanups, schools, churches, Vineyard City. And we look forward to working with the Natural Resource Stewardship and other local programs pertaining to recycling metals. I would like to remind the council that MCR is a solution to the problem of recycling as the community grows. We all need to be responsible and do our part. I feel MCR does a good job at what we're doing for the community. As Orem City grows and expands, so does the recycling needs. We want to grow with the city, and an amendment to the land use code for improvements would be very viable for all parties. I feel it's a responsibility to take care of the earth for our children, grandchildren, and many more to come, and please consider the impact of growth if we don't recycle metals responsibly. Orem City has made it clear that they have recycling goals, and MCR can help with these goals and make them achievable and then some. I believe in closing that Orem City has an obligation and a responsibility to keep our great city clean and free of unwanted metals collecting around the city, and we already have a solution to that potential problem, and that is MCR. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to mention that a couple of meetings ago when we were here, I believe you had an approval for a new apartment building down by UVU, which was approved. If you drive up Center Street, there's a ton of apartment buildings, new apartment buildings. State Street the same way, Orem Boulevard. Orem is a growing city. But I think you send out sort of a mixed message. You say, you know, come to Orem, build in Orem, grow in Orem, become a vital part of our society or of our city, because we support that growth as a council and a mayor and a city. But this appears that you don't support the growth of the recycling business to be able to handle that increased population. And I think it just, on one hand, we've got a lot of people moving into the city, and you encourage that growth with new apartment buildings here, there, everywhere in Orem, which is a great thing. But there comes a point when our yard can't handle that increased population, and if you don't give us that opportunity to grow, then they're going to be forced to go to other cities or not recycle at all. And that's my main point. I think that Orem City realizes what a vital part recycling is in today's world, and I hope we can make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much. Okay, we'll now bring Mike Dunn's group up, and you've got 20 minutes to speak. And if you could introduce everybody as well.
Yeah, well, he told me to plug the blue one in. I've got it. Okay. Mayor Brunst, Orem City Council members, thank you for providing us the time to come and speak with you today. My name is Marie Durant, and I am counsel for DCD Transfer and Recycling Station. I'll let everyone else introduce themselves as they speak, if that's okay.
Bet.
So I just wanted to introduce myself quickly. I grew up in Provo and started my family here in Orem, so I hope I'm not too much of a stranger here. We're here to talk to you about the potential impacts of Orem City's proposal to rescind the solid waste land use in the M2 zone. The proposed changes could hurt existing businesses, reduce options to remedy the negative externalities, as they've been called in different meetings here before the council, that have been presented as the reason for the zoning change, and they can also contribute to anti-competitive behavior and invite litigation. We have heard several misunderstandings about how solid waste is defined, as well as construction and demolition waste, recycling materials, and scrap and metal. And so my remarks are meant to address these issues and provide a broad overview of environmental laws that govern how DCD is and always has been regulated. So we've been told that we're limited on time. There's several of us who are going to speak, But we're happy to answer questions at the end of our presentation, and they've told us that you can ask as many questions as you would like, and we're very happy to answer them. So to begin with, all waste in Utah is regulated under the Utah Solid Waste Management Act and the Utah Solid and Hazardous Waste Act. Solid waste has a very broad definition under the law. It's essentially anything that's been discarded. It can be garbage, it can be industrial and commercial waste, demolition and construction debris are also considered as solid waste. And a solid waste management facility includes a transfer station like DCD and a resource and recovery facility. So DCD has been approved to operate by the Utah Division of Waste Management under these environmental laws. They have been approved to serve as a transfer station and to recycle solid waste. This is a copy of the permit from the Utah Division of Waste Management. It is a plan of operation for the DCD Orem Transfer and Recycling Station, and it includes approval of operations to handle municipal solid waste. We're going to talk a little bit more about the definition of that because that can be a confusing term. So transfer stations like DCD handle solid waste. As we said, there's many different types of solid waste, but it's defined in Utah law that transfer means the collection of non-hazardous solid waste. So by definition, DCD is a transfer station, and they've been approved to handle solid waste. One type of solid waste includes construction and demolition waste, C&D, as it's often referred to. And so that's the first way that DCD was approved to handle solid waste, was when it was approved as a C&D transfer station. Recycling stations also handle solid waste. Recycling under Utah law is defined to mean extracting valuable materials from the waste stream. Again, anything that's going to be regulated under Utah law has to qualify as solid waste. I'm an environmental attorney, and you would not believe the amount of time we spend trying to determine what is and isn't solid waste. It can be some very exciting legal battles if you're a nerd like me. The state has approved DCD to accept certain types of solid waste. On their permit, that includes municipal solid waste, construction and demolition waste, inert waste, and yard waste. And again, we're going to talk more about municipal solid waste. I think that's one of the most confusing terms. So under Utah law, they have a definition for municipal solid waste, and two of these types of municipal solid waste are important here, and I believe contribute to a lot of the confusion that's been going on. The first one is household waste, or what's often referred to as residential municipal solid waste. This is what almost everyone thinks of when you talk about municipal solid waste, and I think that's the term. When most people have been discussing municipal solid waste, that's what they're referring to and what Orem City has authority to regulate. But under the definition of municipal solid waste, under Utah law, it also includes non-hazardous commercial solid waste. So that's coming from industry, businesses, all different types of commerce that produce waste. The third type is sludge, which is not really relevant for our purposes here. So the Orem City Code has incorporated the definitions and purposes of the Utah Solid Waste Management Act under its own solid waste rules. I'm going to go through just a quick history behind DCD and how it has been regulated to receive solid waste. So it was originally permitted in 2002 by both Orem City and the state of Utah, the Division of Waste Management. The Division of Waste Management approved them to receive construction and demolition waste, and the Orem Planning Commission also passed a resolution, and the Orem City Council unanimously approved it to allow them to receive this type of solid waste. So from the get-go, DCD has been a solid waste facility. Next, in 2004, DCD was approved as a recycling facility to handle solid waste and recycle the valuable materials from that solid waste. The state approved DCD to receive municipal solid waste, commercial municipal solid waste, for its recycling activities. That is what we saw in the permit that I showed you previously with the yellow highlighting. The Orem City Council and the mayor also signed a resolution for the Recycling Market Development Zone into law, and DCD was part of this resolution, really the centerpiece, because of the recycling activities that they provided. As part of this resolution, the Orem City Council approved DCD as a recycling station and repealed all other resolutions, ordinances, and policies that were in conflict with that, either in whole or in part. This was really required as part of getting approval from the state so that DCD could operate as a recycling facility and be approved to receive the benefits in this market zone. The city was required to support them through their zoning and ordinances so that they could operate that way. Again, as I said, it was unanimously approved by the Orem City Planning Commission, and they also found that DCD, the recycling station, complied with all applicable city codes at that time in 2004. Another piece of evidence that DCD is and always has been a solid waste facility is that Orem City has paid to send its own solid waste to DCD for transfer and handling. As recently as last month, Orem City delivered 90 tons of debris, which again qualifies as solid waste, to the DCD transfer and recycling station. So under Orem City law, Orem City has authority to designate how residential municipal solid waste within the city boundaries is handled, and this is done mostly through your solid waste ordinance. However, Utah law prohibits Orem City and any municipality or government entity from requiring commercial municipal solid waste to be delivered to a transfer station that is owned or operated by a public entity. So there are some limitations on what municipalities can regulate with commercial municipal solid waste. So again, as we've talked about, DCD has been permitted to receive and handle solid waste, including municipal solid waste, as part of its recycling activities. This is a use that has always been allowed in the M2 zone with the standard land use code that's at issue this evening, the Solid Waste Disposal Code. There are no Orem City ordinances that negate the definitions under the Utah Solid Waste Management Act of C&D and recycling waste as solid waste. In fact, as we saw, Orem City has adopted the terms of that act into their city code. In addition to Orem City, the state of Utah and Utah County have both issued permits to DCD that allow it to handle and recycle commercial municipal solid waste. We've got those permits with the term municipal solid waste included in them. So we've also found past copies of Orem City meeting minutes where the Orem City Council has recognized DCD as a solid waste facility under the 4850 code, which is at issue this evening. We haven't seen any evidence in any of the documents that Orem City has produced to us that substantiate claims that DCD has never been permitted or zoned to receive solid waste. And so because of all of this background and this foundation, we are concerned that forcing DCD to stop recycling commercial municipal solid waste would benefit Orem City's direct interest in the North Point transfer facility, which would be the only transfer facility available for municipal solid waste if DCD were not allowed to receive it, and would eliminate competition in the relevant market. So on the positive, the bright side, we want you to remember that DCD helps Orem City meet its recycling interests and its recycling needs. Just in a meeting of the City Council last month, it was again emphasized that Orem City has recycling goals and promotes and wants to encourage recycling in its city. The City Council supports establishing recycling facilities and approved one just a few blocks away from DCD at that same meeting. We also want to just call to your attention that DCD is the only existing Utah County recycling service that separates cardboard and metals from C&D waste and conducts leads recycling for construction. These are valuable services to the whole county and that also benefit Orem City. In relation to some of the issues, if the zoning code were to be rescinded, DCD has applied to build a building to enclose its operations, and this is one of the issues that seems to be in dispute with the zoning change. It's been asserted that they could not build a building. We wanted to just show you an example of how this building could help both Orem, the surrounding neighborhood, and DCD. This is a building from Ace Intermountain Recycling up in Salt Lake. They are partnering with DCD to build a building that would enclose the facility and reduce these negative externalities that have been cited as one of the reasons for wanting this zoning change. As you can see, this is a beautiful, clean facility that I think would not be objectionable in the neighborhood where DCD is located right now. So in summary, DCD's request to build an enclosure for its existing operations is a win-win. It would help and not harm property interests in the area. Trying to prevent DCD from building this structure by changing the zoning and not allowing the structure to be built would actually work against Orem City's interest in ensuring safe, clean, and efficient operations for all the businesses in the M2 zone and that are surrounding the DCD facility. DCD's current operations will still be legal and valid, but this important improvement that could make them cleaner and less objectionable would not be available to them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do you want to give us your name?
Yeah, thank you for having me here. My name is Matt Stalsberg. I sent you all a letter. I represent Ace Intermountain Recycling and Ace Disposal. We've been cleaning up this city for the last 20 years. So I just wrote down a few things that I'll move through this kind of quickly because we're pressed on time. Let me start by saying I understand why you wouldn't want garbage collected then dumped in your city. It can bring about the issues you state in your original zoning change request. Nobody wants waste or recyclables dumped in their city, but it can be done responsibly with a well-designed transfer station. We are not asking you to approve a manufacturing facility that will pollute the air. This is a station that satisfies an environmental need all communities benefit from. The Dunn facility is the only facility I'm aware of that recycles construction and demolition debris to meet the needs of companies helping build your businesses and homes. This may not mean a lot unless you are aware of LEED certifications or green housing projects. These processes require a specific amount of recycling to achieve an award in sustainable building. Dunn is the type of business you referred to in an application I ran across prepared by Simtech and submitted by Ryan Clark, your local recycling zone coordinator. He said, the city's current long-term waste management plan is to maximize the opportunity to recycle in an economically feasible manner. By opening up the opportunity for more recycling and transfer to viable processors, the city can continue to promote recycling. Dunn wishes to build and rename this facility to Temp Recycle and Transfer. AIRC hopes to be involved with this because this is what our profession is. We operate transfer stations that transfer materials in an environmentally responsible manner. We are currently installing a recycling sort line in our Salt Lake facility for C&D waste. Our hope is to fully operate this facility as a subcontractor. We have already invested over $1 million in trucks and trailers to get this venture underway and start hauling. We were set back when we heard plans to build were denied due to a zoning change, and no alternative was considered at the time. Dunn has been providing a community service for your city for many years. He is not just a dump. I want to thank you for your time and consideration in this manner. I know I'm pressed on time here. My business is a family-owned. It's been family-owned since 1980. We've worked through many issues with communities along with Wasatch Front.
People want waste or recyclables really to just disappear. We provide a partnership that we believe we can make that happen for you. So, thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Bruce Beard. I've never been able to address a judge or a City Council sitting down, so you'll have to pardon me, and I will be quick. I heard Mr. Bench make an opening statement saying that the goal was to stop these things from new ones from occurring. Well, you've already done that, and for at least 6 months from when you filed this. Mr. Earle will confirm to you that under what's known as the pending ordinance exception to the vested rights doctrine of the state of Utah, you have prevented any new applications for 6 months from the day that it was filed. My understanding is this application was filed on the 26th of October, and that would mean that no one could apply new until the 26th of April. I trust that approximately. Steve's saying approximately, but he's not disputing that there's a 6 month. My point to that is this is certainly a legislative action, and you have the ability to do this action. Whether it's wise or not is in your discretion as elected officials. I would make some arguments to you that it isn't wise, but that's not what I'm going to talk to you about tonight. What I'm going to talk to you about tonight is why do we do it tonight as opposed to wait until the end of the 6-month self-enforcing moratorium. And the reason is because I believe that because we filed an application, and we can dispute this later, I'd rather not, we believe we have a right to complete this building. It's my opinion that the only people who make money fighting about whether we have a vested right or a non-conforming use are lawyers. And I'd rather not make the money. I'd rather not have you spend the money. I've made enough money off of Tooele and off of Orem and other cities that I'd rather do this right. So what I would suggest that we do is that we take the few weeks that we have and try to resolve the building permit issue, and you could adopt this ordinance, whatever Mr. Earle tells you the last date of the pending ordinance doctrine is, you could adopt it on exactly that date and make no difference to the fact that you're meeting Mr. Bench's goals of stopping new ones from occurring. I'm not going to get into an argument tonight about, because I think Marie's done a great job of showing why we're vested. But again, the only people who make money off that vesting fight are me, Steve, and some other lawyers. So please, let's consider this in a reasonable time after we've had a chance to deal with the building permit issues, which we can do rapidly if we can sit down with your staff. We just saw another set of red lines today, but we can do them quickly. That leaves about 30 seconds for Matt, I think.
So for Reese. This is Reese DeMille with Republic Services. My whole issue about being here is, and I work with a company that hauls waste to Mr. Dunn's facility and also to the North Point Transfer Station, is to allow us to have the opportunity and the ability to have competition in the marketplace. It's all about competition for us. And anything that would prohibit Mr. Dunn from taking solid waste is going to diminish or eliminate the competition. And we need that as a provider of services to the community, to Orem community, and also the businesses specifically in Orem. It's going to not give us an alternate place to take our trash. And so that's my main reason for why he has to be able to take it.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you. Appreciate hearing from all of you. Any comments or questions from the council?
I had some.
Councilmember.
Oh, wait, we may have questions.
Oh.
Councilmember McDonald.
I promised we'd answer
them. Marie, right?
Yes.
In your documents that you gave us and had on the screen for those who are in the back, you don't have page numbers, but your transfer station handles solid waste. What happens if you get hazardous waste? You're not knowingly picking it up, I realize, but you pick up a dumpster that has hazardous waste as well as normal C&D work, right? What do you do when you find out you have hazardous waste? And maybe this is for Mr. Dunn, I don't know.
You want me to handle it?
Because you guys are all getting paid by him. He does the work,
about
right?
Law.
Yeah. That has happened a number of times.
Of course it would.
And we end up on the phone with DEQ. And handle it appropriate landfill, appropriate waste. That's Department of Environmental Quality. That's the State Department. I've had gauges that come out of military equipment that was radioactive. They've painted it with radioactive material so they could see it. It would reflect. I've had transformers that were brought to me, and I've had to go get them all tested, taken care of, go back to the customer and say, you take care of it or pay me, one or the other. That has happened a number of times. In the C&D world, my people are trained that just because a dumpster is parked out here for construction waste or yard waste, the neighbors fill it full.
I may drop my used oil, or who knows what else in it. Not me. Mark might. I wouldn't.
We find that at all times. Batteries. We find all kinds of things that we have to handle specialty and handle and take it to the appropriate.
So you have a method. You have a procedure.
Methods for everything that comes up.
Okay.
And it's amazing what comes up.
And it's included in that permit from DEQ. They have specific requirements in that plan for what you have to do if you encounter hazardous.
Okay.
If you knowingly transfer that, are you fined? Or how do they regulate?
If we miss it, I mean, it's part of our screening when we go through our transload process. When we go through the stuff and we find it, yes, we have to take it to the appropriate. We have to notify DEQ and tell them that we've found it. We have inspections constantly. I have 3 different inspectors, one at my landfill that's inspecting, one at Orem, one in Heber, that come in and inspect all the time to make sure that we are sorting and putting everything where it needs to be.
And this would be the same for anyone who's collecting solid waste. Orem City probably has in their plan of operations requirements for what to do if you encounter hazardous waste. There's laws that govern how it has to be handled, who can transport it, who has to come in and deal with it. So anyone that's in the solid waste business and that's governed by Utah law, there's specific procedures that you have to follow.
So are there fines along the line if you don't handle it properly?
Sure.
Yeah, you can get a violation if you don't handle it properly.
Okay, I don't mean to belabor that point. Thank you. Are you picking up household waste or just commercial? So this household waste, further down on slide number whatever, down 7 or 8 slide, you were describing what municipal solid waste means, but you're just doing the highlighted, the non-hazardous commercial solid waste. You were doing the bold and red. You were defining both, but your focus is on this. Is that in accordance with our agreement or with the regulatory that's what you're allowed to pick up?
That's the way yes. Originally it started with C&D only. When I come in 2004 and did the rest, we followed state regulations and we went to commercial. I have never accepted a residential garbage truck in my operation. Yep. It is never there. You can't find a picture of one because it's just not there. And you can talk to these 2 individuals right here. They're my 2 main haulers. They don't bring it to me.
Right.
It's also included in the permit that's in the slides as well with the yellow highlighting.
Right.
That's where it permits him to receive municipal waste.
Thank you.
We have dumped mixed recyclables at his facility.
And they sort it out and separate the metals from the papers, from the cardboard, from whatever.
Yes, mixed recyclables.
Only from commercial, or is that also? Do you have from residential as well?
No, from residential and commercial. You know, over the time, North Point focuses on residential waste. We're not looking to disrupt that. Mike focuses on commercial waste. There's a tremendous amount of commercial waste that's taken to his facility that I don't know if anybody realizes. I would estimate half of your city's commercial waste goes to his facility.
From various companies that you pick up for, is that right, Reese?
Yeah, or him.
Both of us. There's multiple other independent haulers that go there as well. And he's cheaper than that other option. $1 or $2 a ton could mean hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for us.
Yeah. On that,
Number C-Strand.
Thank you. On that, in your presentation, you mentioned that about 90 ton came from Orem commercial use last month. Did I hear that right?
Oh, you're talking about the
city
order?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was just one of several purchase orders that I've seen, and I don't know if I've seen the comprehensive list, but that was just an example, yeah. And Orem regularly takes solid waste.
And I asked this before, but I couldn't quite get an answer. But of the percentage of material that comes through your facility, what percentage of it is actually coming from Orem compared to the rest of the county or the rest of the community? Is it a large percentage? Is it a...
You're the haulers.
I would estimate probably 35%.
Okay, so about a third of it is local.
There's so much building, if not more, you know. There's a tremendous amount of building and construction I can't account for, but
in the
commercial business.
Look at how many commercial businesses Orem has compared to the rest of northern county.
Yeah.
That would be the percentage that would go into Dunn's.
Now, I had heard though that you were getting residential waste from like Alpine City and from some of these others that were coming as part of that.
No, that was a rumor from 2013. We actually took mixed recycling to Mike for a year. At least I believe he transported them. You know, Mike's facility could be a place where Orem takes its mixed recyclables. North Point doesn't take them. I don't know if you guys know that.
What is a mixed recyclable?
So your blue cart, blue.
Yeah, they are.
So your blue cart, you know, you put all your mixed recyclables in there, your can,
okay,
your cardboard, your paper. They all go in any standard garbage truck with a packer, and they're dumped at a facility that processes them or transports them. His facility transports any type of waste, where he could move it down to Salt Lake, or there's 2 major processors down there. He could move it out of state. So all those are commodities that are sold on the secondhand market.
So you're saying the mixed recyclables come in on a side loading truck?
Yes.
And they come into this DCD?
They did. Many years ago they did, back in 14 and 15. He was transporting those down.
Are you still receiving some of those?
No. We could move them through this facility, but we need a building. We need a building to be able to house a lot of this stuff and clean it up. It would make a tremendous difference if we had a building to prevent things from blowing around, or birds, or, you know, all this is.
But I believe that Waste Management is picking that up now.
They are. Yeah, and they deliver it to another processor.
They take it to themselves.
But you're saying that you've received it from other cities that Waste Management does not service?
You're talking about Orem City recyclables,
or other cities? No.
Or Alpine?
I don't know, but I'm saying if Waste Management is picking up Orem's mixed recyclables, and you are saying you are receiving or have received mixed recyclables, those must be coming from another city besides Orem.
Sure.
So that's...
We've taken Alpine's mixed recyclables to Mike. We haven't taken trash, but we've taken mixed recyclables. We drop them at his place, and they get transported to another facility in Salt Lake. So he's a transfer.
No, I understand what a transfer station is. If you see side loaders coming in, you don't know if that's residential or mixed recyclables.
You may not.
But is the mixed recyclables transported in white plastic kitchen bags?
No.
No, generally not.
I've seen a lot of contamination mixed recyclables, but is there something I'm missing?
No, I just have pictures of solid waste, residential trucks going into this facility. And I've personally witnessed white plastic bags coming out of all of them. So I'm scratching my head.
We've got one commercial, well, it's not one, but we have an IHC recycling.
No, I have Ace disposal trucks. I've got pictures of them.
Boy, that's a first to me.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it is a first, because I've seen it on several occasions.
No, it's a first to me. It's a first to me.
If you'd like to see the pictures,
So
I've got
are
pictures.
you asserting that it's residential solid waste from Orem City? Is that what you're asserting?
No, I'm not asserting. What I'm asserting is I have pictures of Ace trucks with side load dumpster or devices dumping in Mr. Dunn's site, and out of them is coming white plastic kitchen garbage bags, which typically is not what mixed-use recycling goes in, because every residential mixed-use recycling can, the encouragement is to put all of your plastics, all of your recyclables, not in plastic bags.
Jamie, we take Alpine's waste directly out to the landfill. I don't know how recent the pictures are.
This truck said South Jordan in the front of it.
And a spare. I don't know what it would call.
I just want you to be careful as to how you define what you've never done.
So why can't Mike take city waste in the first place? Let's talk about that. Is that...
Well, because that's not what she said it was permitted to do.
I'm just
Well,
curious.
I would say Orem city waste is not permitted, but he is allowed to take municipal solid waste. So when I'm talking about Orem municipal solid waste, only commercial municipal solid waste from Orem would be allowed.
But you're
there's
saying
nothing,
residential waste from another city
there's
is
nothing
acceptable.
to exclude that. I understand that that has not happened, but there's nothing to exclude that from other cities besides Orem.
I'm not saying we're not taking it there, but I don't understand why we couldn't in the first place. We take commercial front loaders and roll-offs there. They go in and out of there all day.
So I was just trying to get the facts earlier and talked about this slide. And you said you were not doing household waste, you were only doing the bold red.
Not from Orem City.
But that wasn't my question. My question is, are you doing household waste? And you said no. So
I don't believe
Jamie is
household
driving
waste,
us.
but that's more of a detail question than a legal question. So that I'll leave that to the
Mike asserts he hasn't. Is that correct, Mike?
I have never seen a side loader in there. I spend 2 hours a day at least. I've never seen a side load truck in there. And as far as what comes in from these two, I see their trucks daily come in. I park where they pull up and back up and dump and watch how they clean up and their operation for safety and other things. I've never seen a side load. So if Jamie's got a picture, it'd shock me because I don't see it. And
sounds
I know
like
the difference between
we need to see the picture if there's something
specify.
specific.
Maybe we're getting mixed up on something.
I guess Mayor and City Council, I guess my only concern is I think you need to qualify what you say.
I do not.
I think I know where we're mixed up, okay? A commercial side loader dumping garbage, there's a such thing as a commercial side loader, right? I dump commercial cans all the time.
This is a very fluid conversation.
Well, I think there's been a lot of
There's an
confusion in these
HOA
definitions,
or
and
such.
that
no
led
waste
to
from
some-
Alpine has gone there. Guys, we're not trying to hide something. It would be foolish of me to run Alpine's waste down through Dunn's facility out to the landfill.
Mr. Mayor, may I comment on this just for a second?
Sure.
And it's sort of a confession because up until about a month ago in Salt Lake City, I didn't know I was breaking my Salt Lake City recycling rules by putting my mixed waste recycling in a plastic white bag like Jamie's talking about, and I was taking it out my blue bin, and literally last month in Salt Lake City, there was a note posted to everybody. It was actually a TV story as well, explaining that thou shalt not put your recycling in your white plastic bags because that's not good recycling practices, and it actually screws up some of the recycling bins. I don't know what's happening, but I can tell you that at least until last month, guilty as charged, sir. So I don't know what's actually...
Sure, I was just going to say the norm is not that way, though. You're unusual.
Again, I'm just saying I don't know what the facts are, so I don't know what photographs Mr. Davidson has.
Jamie, and
I'm not trying to
could
argue
be mixed up. There is a such thing as a commercial side loader. We dump commercial accounts. We dump multiple HOAs and multifamily complexes. Those are commercial businesses. And we could dump them at Dunn's place.
And that would be the commercial municipal solid waste
Yes.
that's underlined in red there.
Exactly. It doesn't mean it.
Well, not to, sure. You were just mentioning that you could take residential waste from Alpine in a side loader and bring it down to DCD.
There's nothing prohibiting that. I'm not saying that it's ever happened. I do not know the details. But from a legal standpoint, in their permit, it allows them to take municipal solid waste. It doesn't distinguish between commercial and residential in the permit. However, because Orem City has an ordinance governing residential solid waste, they're not allowed to take Orem City's residential solid waste because of that.
The discussion when Ace got Alpine, the discussion was they couldn't bring it to me. It was brought up. Yep. I could take yard waste. I told them right then and there after they got it, and I found out. I wasn't consulted about what they was doing. It's their bid. I don't have anything to do with it. But when it come up, I told them, don't bring them to me. I don't want them. That was our agreement from day one, and I've honored that to my knowledge.
Can I?
Our objective is not to steal North Point's waste or the municipal solid waste that it has. It's to continue to service commercial business.
Councilmember Lentz has a question.
Mr. Earl, perhaps you could bring us back down to what we're actually voting on tonight, because I think we're kind of having two separate conversations between the permitted use, the land use, and I don't know if you want to call it enforcement or compliance or whatever, but I think they're maybe related but two separate issues.
Yeah, so the application before you tonight is just a general legislative policy decision on whether to eliminate these two uses from the Appendix A, the standard land use codes of the City of Orem. Obviously, there's a lot of concern on the part of Mr. Dunn and his representatives about what effect that might have on their operation, understandably so, but that's not really the issue that's before you tonight. The only issue that's before you this evening is just whether as a policy decision these two uses ought to be eliminated from the M1 and M2 zones. More than likely, after that decision is made, there will need to be some further decisions and discussions about what the effect of that ultimately is. Tonight it's just a general policy decision. It's not to determine what the effect of that ultimately is on what the applicant, or not the applicant, but the Mr. Dunn here and his operation can do.
Thank you.
Councilmember Spencer has a question.
So I want to ask a question about from Shelley and Gary. So on your building, how big is your building you're proposing?
120 by 200.
No, I meant, I'll ask you later.
Oh.
So Shelley and Gary?
MCR is who he's asking.
Yeah.
The plan is just a general plan. We haven't showed up square footage on the building.
How big is your property? And then Skip?
His is 3.5.
Yours is 3.5 acres?
Mine's a little over 3.
And how, like?
3.14 or something like that.
And this picture of the building, so what size?
It's 240 feet wide by 120 feet deep.
And that's pretty much what you want to build?
It's what'll fit on the property and be efficient to do the sorting and what I need to do, transloading.
Okay, and I appreciate the presentation from MCR and also Dunn. I think that you guys do an amazing job. It definitely needs to be cleaned up, but I appreciate your service in the community, so thank you.
Any other comments from the council? Councilmember Seastrand.
Thank you. So for me, here's kind of where trying to sort through. Over the years, I've been on the council for a little while, and this area of Orem City has been transitioning significantly ever since Geneva Steel Plant left. We've seen different types of businesses built within the area between the freeway and between Geneva Road. We've seen it transition more and more towards away from types of facilities that were necessary and part of the Geneva Steel Plant kind of environment to where now we're seeing more and more professional offices, buildings, development that's taking place. So for me, this issue is, what does the long-term look and what is the long-term appropriate use of standard land use codes in this particular area as we look forward to the future? And the challenge is that at some point we've got to make that decision that says, what is going to be there and what is not going to be there. And over the past number of years since I've been on the council, there's been quite a number of land use code changes in the M1 and the M2 zone in this area. We no longer allow slaughterhouses is one that comes to mind, racetracks. There were a number of things that were permitted before, but now as we're seeing this area of town change, that to me is what's driving the issue. And for me, the question is, do we see more waste transfer stations and more of these two standard land use codes happening in the future. And for me, that's where I'm coming down, is to say I don't see that as a part of the future. Now, that's separate from what you're doing now. I just look at it from, I don't think we need to accept any more as a long-term plan for this part, nor do we accept any more of some of the other uses that have been designated. And my guess is we've changed land use code on this. 20 or 30 land uses have been kind of removed as appropriate in this area. And I think these have been ones where obviously there's been activity going on in these. And so for me, I'm very sensitive to that, to say the intent is not to say to limit or change what you're currently doing. The intent for me is to say I don't see this land use code being a viable alternative in the future. Now, my understanding is you would still be a legal non-conforming scenario, even if the land use codes change. Is that a fair assumption? You're not illegal. You're legal. It's just you're no longer within this aspect. And I think that's how it's been explained to me from our city staff. Are you agreeing with that?
I don't understand it that way, and he can tell you, but they tell me
you think you'd be
expand and grow.
Okay, so your question is on the expanding in terms of a building.
That's right.
But not from a standpoint of adding more land or increasing the size. So for you, the real issue is just the building.
Yes, and I mean if you.
And I think for MCR, that's the real issue as well, right?
We would also like to build legal fences.
Okay.
Mr. Seastern, if I may respond
Please,
to the Land Use Council for Mr. Dunn, it would, as a matter of law and by definition, make Mr. Dunn's operation a non-conforming use. Then the question is what can be done under the non-conforming use. We believe that we would be able to continue the building for a couple of different reasons and complete it. Now, we might have to fight about that. We'd rather not. And that's why I was suggesting that, and I may make a suggestion that does what I just suggested, and that is, if you're going to adopt the ordinance tonight, you could make the ordinance effective. I'm being clever, Steve. You could make the ordinance effective the day before the 6-month pending moratorium window runs out. Then you wouldn't have any worry about letting anybody sneak into the window, and we'd be able to try to work this issue out. We'd be able to try to work this issue out without spending any additional money on getting into a fight. So that's an option, that you could make the ordinance effective at that time.
Any thoughts on that, Steve?
And I know I just sprung it on him, literally that second.
I think that's, I do think that's the intent of the discussion, is you wanted to be able to discuss with us some of the challenges and options.
Yes, sir.
And we wanted to hear those, and I think we're in that scenario of
maybe I can speak to a couple of things, and Mr. Baird and I may differ on this a little bit, but I think as a general statement that the effect of this, if these two SLU codes are removed from the M1 and M2 zones, what that means is that any legally existing uses that are currently taking place on the property would become legal nonconforming. Now, there may be some discussion or dispute as to what those, what uses are legally vested on the property, but those uses would be, whatever they are, would become legal nonconforming. And then there also may be some question as to whether building a building would constitute an expansion of a legal nonconforming use. And as I was suggesting before, I think those are questions that don't have to be answered tonight, can't be answered tonight, really, and that the City Council can move forward on this application. And my suggestion would be, and recommendation would be, that the council go ahead and take action tonight, and then we can work out those issues afterwards. I don't think that we have to work them out before the 180 days passes, as Mr. Baird suggests. That would be one way of doing it, possibly. In my opinion, it's not the best way to do it. In my opinion, the best way would be to take action tonight and then work out those issues after the fact.
And you believe those issues can be worked out based on the discussion that
Well, whether we would come to an agreement, that remains to be seen. I don't know. Certainly we could have discussions about
But it doesn't close the door.
It doesn't close the door. Right.
Would that give you enough time?
Well, it could close the door, because if the city, what's happened before is if the city makes a determination, for example, that we're not vested because they claim the petitions were insufficiently, the plans were incomplete when they were filed, or if the city claims that the non-conforming use that we're trying to preserve wasn't legally established, or if the city claims that this is an expansion, what that will result in is 6 to 9 months of litigation.
Yeah.
And I'm suggesting that there's zero harm to you. And you can ask my friend Mr. Earl, and it's that old joke, if there's one lawyer in town, he's broke. If there's two, they're rich. You can ask him, and if there's any harm whatsoever in making this effective on day 179, which at least gives us the option to try to talk about this in the next 25 days. I understand that you have legislative issues. I'm just trying to come up with a reasonable hope that we can solve this in 30 days. It gives us all time to think about it, because otherwise we're going to have to get into fight. And I've fought local governments enough. I fought Orem. I mean, I sat here for the helicopter. And other things. And I'd rather not do that. I get paid really nicely, and there's a really nice car out there because of it. But let's see if we can solve this rather than doing that. So there's no downside for that. We think we're entitled to do more for those reasons we've stated. But right now I'm in the beating a dead horse point, Mr. Seastrand, and I have this rule of not beating a dead horse.
Thank you.
I would suggest there's no downside to the council taking action right now and letting us work out whatever we can work out after the fact. I mean, the fact of the matter is that as a policy matter, the staff is obviously going to follow the will and the direction of the city council. So if the council takes this action tonight, as you stated, Mr. Seastrand, it's not going to close any doors. The will of the council would still be implemented just exactly as you want it to be done.
And I respectfully disagree with my friend Mr. Earl under these reasons, because once you have made the policy decision and rendered it non-conforming, then the rest is legal issues, and whether it is expandable or not, whether it is vested or not, whether it is non-conforming or not, is not only subject to your decision and your policies, it could be subject to a third-party challenge. So you could want us to do everything that you talked about, build the world's greatest building there tomorrow, the prettiest building you could possibly imagine, and if you adopt this and make it effective immediately, someone could challenge that decision as a third party, and they would have an absolute right to challenge that decision, and whether you think we're the best people on the planet or not would no longer make any difference. That's why it does make a difference if you adopt it effective now or if you adopt it effective on day 179.
So, Mark, are you done?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay, Councilor McDonald.
Thank you, by the way. I appreciate that.
Obviously, we have two intelligent people with different opinions on 179 or whatever we're at, day 157 now, or whatever the number is. I don't think there's a whole 30 days left. Steve, you can probably give us a drop-dead date. Do you know what that date is?
I think I think Mr. Stevens knows that date. I think it was something like April 16th. So I may have given you, I might have been off about 10 days when.
You can confirm that later.
Yeah,
Let me ask
somewhere around.
While you're looking up April 16th. If I heard counsel from Jeffson, forgive me, I've forgotten your name, you were kind enough to say, but if not, you had a but if not bone you tossed to us, but if not, allow us to get our building done, et cetera, et cetera. And if I hear Bruce right, but if not, let's see if we can work quickly with Jason and team to get the building resolved. Did I understand both of you relatively correctly?
Yes, sir.
Yes, and tell me your name, I'm sorry.
Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. I hadn't written it down at the time. I apologize. So those are my first mistake on the council. Thank you very much. So if I understand the situation, there may be some hair splitting on whether we do it today, March 27th, or whether we do it effective April 15th, or whatever the day is. We're only talking about a 3-week window. The goal would be to make them better places. And again, that's a separate issue, the permitting and the land use, as I understand it. And that is between staff and the other. So I think I understand the two positions. I understand Mr. Earle's opinion and Mr. Greg Stevens. If you can give me the date certain, I'd be grateful for that if you were able to look it up.
So the best I can come up with, and this is assuming that the application was filed on October 18th, which I believe is true, I get April 16th as 180 days after that. That's the rough.
So April 15th, just for hair splitting, would be the 179th day.
I'm actually going to check the code because I think it says 6 months.
Okay.
Does it say 180? I haven't checked it since
Okay.
I wrote it. I wrote it in 2005 and haven't checked it.
You don't remember?
I don't, but
Thank you.
I'll let Steve. Steve may be right.
Do you have a comment?
You haven't drafted plans. I understand that. You have a theory, but not building permit or any of that kind of stuff. No designs. Yep, I understood that. Thank you.
Maybe
go ahead, Steve.
I hate to belabor this too, but I guess to expand upon my earlier point, if the council acts on this and removes the two SLU codes tonight, and say there's obviously a question about when they become legal nonconforming, whether construction of a building is an expansion and can be allowed or not. There may be some disagreement. But even if it turns out that that's not allowed because it becomes an expansion of a nonconforming use, if the council so desires, you could direct staff to say, find a way to let them build their building. That's what I'm suggesting. And so we could find a way to do that, even though that's become a non-permitted use in the zone. And and so that doesn't foreclose that possibility from still occurring.
Okay, Councilmember Spencer, thank you.
So, Mr. Baird, I like Mr. Baird's idea to wait till April 15th.
I'm going to agree with Mr. Earle because I just double-checked his math, and he is correct that the statute I wrote in 2005 on vested rights did have a 180-day clock. And the reason is because I was not stupid enough to say 6 months, because God knows which 6 months we're talking about, which would have violated my own cardinal rules as a lawyer to be that stupid. So, Steve, thank you, Steve, for correcting me for not being stupid the first time.
So 180 days was April 16th, so it would be April 15th. Is that correct, on 179?
Except April 15th is a Sunday, so we'd probably have to say April 13th if we're doing that.
Okay.
It would be a Friday.
So, I mean, my only concern is if we're saying this all in goodwill and that we do come together and say, hey, you can build your buildings, I would just hate to see all of a sudden we pass it tonight and all of a sudden, we screwed them. And I don't want that because I don't want to put anybody out of business. So that's my concern.
Okay. Any other comments? Councilmember Sumner.
Yeah, I've known both these businesses. I've dealt with them for years, especially MCR. My concern is that it seems like the city's been a cheerleader since 2002, and I know what Mark said about changing times and locations and real estate and whatnot. But I am willing to give both these businesses the benefit of the doubt and wait till the 15th, or we have a council meeting the 10th, don't we?
Yeah, but I'd like to get this thing done effectively.
Well, I hate to continue items too, but I don't want to put these folks out of business or handcuff them.
And it's not going to have that effect.
Huh?
I mean, it's not going to put. I mean,
well, it's not going to put them out of business, but I hate to.
The other difficulty is, I think, if you're talking about trying to work something out with both the Dunn property and the MCR property in that time frame, I see that as being nearly impossible.
Yeah, the other thing is, what are you going to accomplish in 2 weeks? I think.
Well, that's up to the city and these people.
Right, but I think
they said they
it's going to take more time than 2 weeks.
Well, they said they could do something.
And then the other one can't, and this one I think would take more than 2 weeks, and we are going to run out of our time situation.
So then my question is, why were these things not discussed way prior to this meeting?
They've been discussed since November.
Well, okay,
on that.
What's been the outcome of that discussion?
Continue it.
Continuations.
Continue 4 times. Hasn't it?
So, any other comments from the council? Sure. Sure. So one thing I would like to say is, in accordance with what Councilmember Spencer said, these are two great businesses. They do a great service for our community. I personally have used one of them. I haven't used the other one, but they're, I think, serve a very good purpose within our community. I don't think anybody here on the council wants to see them going out of business. If they do become legal non-conforming, they can continue on in business. The question seems to really revolve around buildings at the moment, and I think the amount of time it takes to resolve that is not necessarily in our favor in 2 weeks on one side and the other side longer. Planning Commission has recommended that the council amend Appendix A, and so I would actually like to make a motion by ordinance to amend Appendix A of the Orem City Code by changing SLU codes 4850, solid waste disposal, and 5193, scrap and waste materials, from permitted to not permitted uses in the M1, M2 zones. Is there a second?
Second. May I ask a question? Yes. Is that legal? Effective April 13th or effective tonight?
I would put it effective tonight.
Second.
I don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks, and I don't want to lose that 180-day window.
No.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Then we'll go ahead and start with Councilmember Spencer.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Council, if I vote nay, can we re-vote with a different date?
We can have a second motion.
Then I will vote nay.
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 Okay.
I would like to make a motion, Mr.
Hold
Mayor.
on for a second.
Okay.
The motion fails. Go ahead with the second motion.
I'm sorry, before we do that.
Yeah.
My concern with putting that artificial time box on it is, and Mr. Earl, maybe you could add some context to this, could that set some kind of expectation that if it's not done within that 2 or 2.5 week window, then anything else after that wouldn't be valid? That's my primary. I don't really care too much about the 2.5 week cushion there, but to your point, I just don't want to send a mixed signal that, you know, we're allowing this time, but it has to be done in that 2.5 week period. In other words, could courts potentially see it?
Before I make the motion, for me, it's just a good faith offering to the two companies that the spirit of we're trying to work together to get this resolved. So it's insignificant, the 2 weeks. I hope it's an olive leaf that we do want to work this together and encouraging our staff to work with you. And whether you get it done on the 13th, that can be resolved separately. I think it's the spirit of what I'm trying to represent more than the hard date of the 13th to folks who don't have plans, and even folks who do have plans, to push things through in 10 days, 20 days is tough.
Councilor Spencer.
So could we add that if we pass this, then by the 13th, that we could put in there that we can talk about the building and make sure that's noted for both companies? No?
I don't, like 2 or 3 weeks, I don't think that makes much of a difference.
I think it makes a big difference. Seriously. I mean, we're talking about legal nonconforming, and I don't want to put anybody out of business, even though we're talking yes, but let's make sure, let's put it in writing. So.
And if it doesn't happen within that 3 weeks, then what?
Best efforts.
Best efforts. And maybe it's a continuation of the city.
You know, I know this is an aside, but next week is a spring break week for many within the city. So I think that's going to be difficult in and of itself to schedule staff to even meet.
I was going to say, I've never seen buildings approved and everything taken care of in 2 weeks when things are not
At least it's in the works.
So.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not anticipating any of these being done, nor do we believe they have to be done by then. If they're legal nonconforming, they can still make the adjustments to their site plan. Is that correct, Steve?
If they're legal nonconforming, can they make adjustments to their site plan?
Yes.
Well, the rule is they can't expand. So again, you know, that's a discussion that Mr. Baird and I would have to probably have about what that means exactly. So I can't answer specifically.
Also, Lisa would have to have that same discussion.
She's in a different situation.
I guess my concern, because we have one business that is pretty close, maybe theoretically 2 weeks would be enough or 3 weeks would be enough, but we have another business that's far from that. And so if we're setting that expectation that this 2 weeks gives us enough time or 3 weeks gives us enough time.
I don't think there's that expectation.
So then why are we doing it?
There's a little bit of time to have some discussion and set some ground rules.
May I respond? I know your meeting's closed, but if I may, at least as behalf of Dunn, there is an issue that the city can consider because we clearly did file, and there may an application. Whether I don't want to get into a fight as to whether it's vested, whether it's an expansion, any of those things. But in those 2 weeks, we could sit down with your staff and figure out whether there is something that can be done for Dunn, and whether there's some way we could come back afterwards. And I'm going to just use some examples, such as a conditional use permit, but no expectations. I mean, the clock, the mice turn, the horses turn into mice at midnight on the 13th. There's no legal expectation that the horses don't turn into mice at midnight on the 13th. It's a good faith gesture so that in those 2 weeks, we can see whether something can come up or whether it can't come up. If it doesn't, we're all back to square one, which is begging you to do something different in the future, or else legally fighting you about the nonconforming. And that's all I've asked, is to buy until literally the witching hour, or I guess I've mixed metaphors of mythological creatures now, and that's all I've suggested. And I appreciate the courtesy of you considering it.
Sure. So I personally wouldn't want to go right down to the last hour. This is too important of an issue that we've been dealing with for a long time for future uses. I think you're pretty much aware that we are all wanting to see you be able to put some buildings up, but it depends on how that works out. I would like to hear some comments. Sure. Sure, no, we are.
I mean, I think it's fairly obvious that your main problem is with Dunn construction. We seem to be sort of caught up in it because we're in the same area. I mean, they got 20 minutes.
Sure.
We got 10 minutes.
I'm sorry.
So why not split the two land use codes, deal with him, because obviously you've had problems with him in the past, and not us. And the discussion has been totally about his business and not ours. So split the land codes up and deal with him and leave one the same.
Thank you. I would like to go back to Steve and Greg and hear any other thoughts you might have. No thoughts.
I never really got an answer.
Mayor, if I may,
go ahead.
It is staff's recommendation that we move forward, that you move forward with this tonight. That's staff's recommendation.
Well, that's what I tried to do, but didn't get the vote.
Well, hold on. You're about to. Let me make a motion if you're ready for one.
So before you make that motion, Greg and Steve, tell me your thoughts on the dates. I mean, if the idea, as Tom has said, is to offer an olive leaf, okay, and so if we were to extend this a little bit, what dates are we talking about? I personally don't think that we're going to get anything accomplished within the time period. So, personally, I would move forward with it tonight. I appreciate the olive leaf, but at the same time, I feel like we've debated this enough. I think we should move forward and accept it tonight. But
that's already been voted on, Mayor.
It has, and it didn't pass.
Don't cry over spilled milk.
I'm not crying over spilled milk. I'm telling you my opinion. I'm allowed to give my opinion.
When you vote it, you've got.
No, but I'm allowed to give my opinion as well.
And my opinion is we shouldn't have.
So
I'm allowed to give my opinion.
You did.
Ready to make a motion?
You did, but I'm still talking. So hold your horses.
That's because you ignored the motion.
So no, we have a chance to have a discussion before we finish. But Steve and Greg, tell me your thoughts.
Jamie already summarized their votes.
Well, again, my thought is, if it's your direction to extend an olive leaf, whether that is to find a way to let them build their building, even if it's a non-conforming use, we can do that after the fact. It doesn't have to happen before. Absolutely, there are ways to do that, if that is your wish.
Okay. So
do you make that part of the motion?
No.
You need to make that, or just?
I don't think you need to do that. I think that obviously as staff we're working for you. We follow your direction. So if that's
and if we were looking at a date, what date is safe so we're not in an issue?
Well, I think that Greg was looking at something like April. What was it, Greg?
So we think it's April 16th, but we would recommend maybe going a day or two before that.
I have a motion that will do that if I get a chance.
Okay, go right ahead.
Mayor?
Hold on, Brent has a comment. Sorry, Tom.
I just want to make a motion.
Oh, I've been trying to for 5 minutes.
I
I like that.
So I think I still have the floor. I'm ready to make a motion.
I said first.
No, I think Tom got it.
I think
Actually, Tom made the motion. Was trying to make a motion first.
Just vote against it.
Go ahead.
Okay, good. I recommend that the City Council, by ordinance, amend Appendix A of the Orem City Code by changing SLU codes 4850, solid waste disposal, and 5193, solid and waste materials, from permitted to non-permitted use in the M1 and M2 zones effective April 12th, so we are not yet the last day, 2018, with an understanding that we would work to find ways for the two existing businesses to come to a
DCD and MCR.
DCD and MCR to come to a way to get their buildings built in a timely manner.
Second.
Can I just clarify that?
Sure.
So I want to be clear that your motion to take these two uses out of the M1 and M2 zone is not conditioned upon what you just said with working with the two businesses, but it's just a recommendation
that you would.
Pardon me?
An understanding that we would attempt to work with them, but not
and not conditioned on actually coming to some kind of resolution within that
by
time
any
period.
date certain.
Thank you.
Understand.
Second that motion.
Okay, Councilmember Spencer.
Nay.
Aye.
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 Nay.
Okay, the resolution passes. Ordinance passes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, and we will go ahead and move on to our next item. This is a public hearing, citywide impact fee plan. This is an ordinance adopting impact fee facilities plans and impact fee analysis, establishing impact fee service areas, enacting impact fees for water rights, water supply, treatment storage, distribution facilities, wastewater collection and treatment facilities, stormwater, drainage and flood control facilities, roadway facilities, parks, recreation facilities, open space and trails, and public safety facilities on development activity in the applicable impact fee service area. Bren Bybee is our presenter.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. Appreciate the opportunity to bring the results and recommendations on what is the culmination of a 2-year study on impact fees for the city, as the mayor just listed. Maybe just in brief introduction, we've been working closely with Zion's Public Finance and with a number of staff members in the city to work on the details of this study on this project. We've had a really robust public outreach process through all of this that initiated in going and presenting to the Public Works Advisory Commission, included an open house at the beginning of the month. We've had drafts and updating drafts of all of the impact fee facilities plans and impact fee analyses up on our webpage. And we literally sent out hundreds of direct invitations to the development community and worked closely with the Utah Valley Home Builders Association. The feedback we've gotten from them has been detailed and constructive and productive along the way, and we've appreciated that input and feedback they've given. I guess with that introduction, I'll turn the time over to Susie. This is the same presentation that we brought before you in a work session a couple weeks ago, but for the benefit of the public, we'll go through that. That being said, if there's any questions that you have, please don't hesitate.
All right, thank you. We've really appreciated the opportunity to work with Orem City. Because we have done this presentation several times and we had a public open house, I am going to go through it much more quickly tonight than I did at the work session. On our first slide here, you can see we are just looking at the team, that we have a team of experts that helped with this process. We had Bowen Collins, we had Horrocks, we had Landmark Design, and Zion's Public Finance for all team members. We're going to start at the end of the road here. Just wanted to give you an idea of what the total fees would be. We looked at 6 different fees. You can see them listed there. In the citywide area, they come to a total of a little over $6,000. And then when we look at the Southwest Annexation area, significantly more, because the culinary water, the sewer, and the stormwater fees are higher in that area because of the lack of infrastructure, while the other 3 fees are the same for roads, for parks, and for public safety.
So I know you're going to show us comparisons at some point. Maybe you're not, but I think you will.
There you go.
My question is, so other cities that, when you look at Linden or South Jordan or American Fork or whatever, are those brownfield or greenfield? So do you have any that are comparisons, apple to apple? So in other words, Southwest is really a greenfield and the rest of our cities a brownfield. And I'm imagining these other cities are really brownfield.
Somewhere in between. Then you've got a mix of cities here, and we did it mainly by size.
And that's fine. I
Around.
just was curious, but I didn't think you'd really have something that's a direct comparable. So
yeah, super difficult to have a very good apples-to-apples comparison.
I think the 2 components we looked at were typical, similar population size and geographic location.
Yeah. Certainly high-growth cities on here have more developable land than the city.
And some higher fees. So you can see, looking at this, that Orem's fees are really relatively quite low for the citywide area and relatively on the higher side for the Southwest Annexation area. They're quite different. So let's start, first of all, with public safety. It has 2 components. It has fire and it has police. Future fire capital projects include expansion to the city's public safety administration building and construction of station number 4 in the southwest quadrant of the city. It was calculated looking at a cost per fire call, and then we don't charge, obviously, on a fire call. We're going to charge on a residential unit or commercial square foot, so we needed to know how many calls per unit. This was, we found these numbers by geocoding calls for service and attributing them to the development type. So the amount that we come up with just to compare on a single-family residential unit is just almost $218. There's commercial also has some fire apparatus added in that can only be included in commercial, not in residential development. And that puts you for fire right in the middle of the pack there. And the same fee for the Southwest and the city average on that is its one citywide service area. Moving on to police, where there's an expansion to the city's public safety administration building. There is some buy-in. There's some existing excess capacity here, so there's a buy-in to existing facilities as well as some future facilities. Cost per call there is almost $100. More calls per unit on residential for police than there were for fire. And so we multiply that call time to 1.2 to get $120 per residential unit. You can see the multifamily is a little bit less. Commercial, again, is charged, we're showing there per 1,000 square feet. And when we put police into that list as well, you're a little bit about the bottom third there in terms of that fee, and that fee would be citywide. So the public safety fee would be fire and police added together. Moving on to water. We have 2 service areas here. This is where one of the areas where we do see a difference between the Southwest Annexation area and the rest of the city, and the Southwest Annexation area is shown in purple hatched there, marked on that map. These are just a list of the facilities, the capital facilities for which the impact fees would be paying. 2 different fees here. On the left, you have the citywide fee, $1,603 per ERU. When we look at the right-hand side, you'll see that this $1,603, because the Southwest needs to pay the citywide fee, it ties into the transmission to the system of the city. All of that city system, plus it has additional needs to service the Southwest area. And so an additional $1,400 then is added in to get a total fee of about $3,000, about double in the Southwest Annexation area. Then water supply costs are treated separately. It's my understanding in Orem that the developers have the choice of bringing their water rights, or they can pay the water supply fee. This is a really low cost per acre foot, actually, compared to many areas. And so it just comes out to be $2,804 per ERU. So when we put these...
When you say low cost, tell me what you mean.
Well, Central Utah, is it Central Utah Water? Is it, CPI has about, what, 15,000 an acre foot, from what I understand? Is that right? That's what I've been hearing lately.
That's correct. It's probably 5 times.
Yeah, so this is good. So then we look at comparative water impact fees. So you can see without the water supply fee where you are down there, we've highlighted you in red for the citywide service area and in blue for the southwest area. And again, the citywide area is somewhat lower, especially without the water supply fee. Okay. Now moving on to sewer. These again would be the capital facilities for which the impact fees would be paid for. These are facilities needed within the next 10 years. Sorry, this one was citywide. This one is the southwest area. And the southwest area is divided amongst significantly fewer, smaller development, and so the fee goes quite high in this area. We see a significant difference between the citywide sewer fee and the southwest annexation fee. In the case of sewer, it's different than water. The citywide fee is one fee. The southwest is a different fee. With water, remember, we had a citywide fee that the southwest area paid plus the additional fee for that area. So it's structured a little bit differently. And you can see a real difference here. You're the next to bottom of the list on your sewer for the citywide, and you're at the top there on the southwest annexation area. There we go. Moving on to transportation. Horrocks has prepared these maps. These are the capital facilities estimated to be needed within the next 10-year period. And then the next map, if you look and see where those projects are, these are the ones that are impact fee eligible. So where the need for these facilities is necessitated by new growth and where they will provide the additional capacity to serve new growth. Here they are in a more detailed list. So either the map or the list, and this has the cost of them as well. So what we do when we look at the roadway, the transportation impact fee, there was no buy-in to excess capacity, there was new construction, and we come up with a cost per PM peak hour trip. And then it gets a little tricky, but we allocate how many PM peak hour trips are generated by different types of development. We use the ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers Manual. It's kind of the Bible of road trips, and we use that to estimate or to use the actual number of trips. Then the model is modified just a little bit because to account for trip ends. Their trips are cut in half, which cuts the fee in half, and for pass-by trips as well. When you're doing several errands on one trip, certain types of businesses fall into that category to end up with the fee on the right. The cost per trip there has also been adjusted by you have some outstanding bonds. So when this cost per trip right here, the $942, is then multiplied by this 50% and then also brought down by the future bond payments that new development will be making. They get about $100 credit on that, a little bit of credit on that. So as you look at the impact fee over the next 5 years, you can see what they will be paying at the building permit counter. I have to tell you, it drives me crazy when people say the fee is going up. The fee is actually the same that the development would be paying, but they'll just be paying as time goes on a little more at the building permit counter and a little bit less through future bond payments. So it is constant, but the developers will be different that come in. When we put the transportation impact fees into here, you can see that they're the same citywide southwest annexation area. And again, you're in the lower third. Storm drain, here's the list of all the facilities that are assumed to be needed in the citywide area. And some very expensive ones are needed for storm drain in the southwest annexation area. Again, we see 2 different fees in this area, not the same fee for both. This is where we see the biggest difference. We see in the citywide nearly $2,700 and over $11,000 in the southwest annexation area because of those new facilities that are needed and the lack of them there because of no development. Again, we have a bond outstanding, so you can see the same thing happening, that there's the fee after the bond credits, and this is on a per acre basis. It'd be $1,463 compared to $10,000. That's come down a little from the numbers I just showed you because of the credits for the outstanding bonds. Now the next slide, we're going to see, you've just seen the number on a per acre basis. In order to compare with other cities, we're assuming quarter acre lots. And so when we're comparing residential units, you've just seen these numbers divided, the single family number divided by 4 to account for what an average homeowner might pay. And this, the fee, again, for the citywide is very low, whereas the Southwest Annexation area is high in comparison. Lastly, parks and recreation. Okay, here you had a master plan done by Landmark Design, and the impact fees were based off of that plan. Is that going to move? There we go. Okay, so the cost, the main categories we're looking at that we can charge impact fees for would be park land, park improvements, all the things in the park, the Boweries, the tennis courts, that type of thing. The mowed acres, only the capital cost, not the cost of mowing them, but the sod and irrigation, parking, trails, trail structures, and that type of thing. Over the next 10 years, you would need a total of nearly $6.2 million in order to keep the same level of service now provided to your existing residents. So we divide it out on a per capita basis. We're only charging this fee to residential development because only residential is seen to create the demand for more park facilities. The cost per person then comes out at $814 nearly, but we don't charge it on a per person basis. We charge it on a residential unit. So we look at the household size, multiply the cost per person that we just calculated by the household size. So your maximum fee would be $2,900 and $2,500. But again, we have bonds outstanding. So that comes down just a little bit with about $100 credit to $2,800 for a single family. And then you can see on the list where you stack up compared to other communities, ranging anywhere from 1,000 up to about 5,000. I think there is the last slide, the first slide that we saw at the beginning to show you where you fall in with all of the 6 fees added together again, compared with other cities that are charging those same fees. And that's our presentation.
Okay.
Open to any questions that you may have.
Councilmember McDonald has a question.
So just because we're at the low end of this fee, we can't say, oh, good, we can charge more money because, quote, the market will bear. We have to support it with the very numbers that you've gone through. So you've gone through the detail. This is all estimates are off a little bit, but this is a pretty darn good estimate, and it's what we are legally and ought to be charging. Is that kind of the summary?
The maximum fee that you can charge.
Yep. Thank you.
And if I might add, we really did try to make a concerted and conscientious effort throughout to if there was doubt, to err on the side of being conservative and cautious.
Councilmember Lentz has a question.
In the work session, you mentioned that cities will typically revisit something like this every 4 to 5 years and make appropriate adjustments. If the level of service changes kind of separate from this process, in other words, if Orem invests in several new parks outside this process, do we recalculate what the standard level of service is and in recalculating what the impact fee would be going forward from there?
You certainly could. At that point, we usually say, rather than a time frame, if there are any significant changes that occur to any of your projections, to annexations, to capital facilities, to level of service, to growth projections, we saw at the end of 2008, 2009, land prices go down quite a bit, and that would be an adjustment downward rather than upward. So it could go either way.
And if, as far as what's in our public works master plans that we have with water, sewer, storm drain, is everything that we approved previously in those master plans already incorporated here, or are there any other major projects kind of off in the distance that we weren't yet able to calculate in this?
What is included is what's eligible for impact fees. And so we did not include a wide variety of things that are not eligible by law. I don't know if that answered your question specifically.
Well, I don't necessarily need like a full detailed list of every single project, but is there anything off in the distance that I'm thinking like the $12 million water storage tank, for example, something to that effect, or I'm sorry, 10 million gallon or 12 million gallon.
$10 million.
Right. So if there was some project like that wasn't calculated here, is there a likelihood or possibility that if we revisited this 5 years from now, that one of those major projects would heavily influence this if we revisited it?
Yes. So we have, so the impact fee, it evaluates for the next 10 years. Is that right, Susie?
Yes, and let me clarify too, impact fees have to be spent within 6 years of when they're collected. So if you're planning some major improvement that goes beyond the time frame, and we've done a 6 to 10 year, thinking, well, the second year goes to 7, 38, they're not included. And impact fees can change dramatically when you update them because of those limitations in the law.
So there are several projects outside of that window that we'll have to revisit again in the future. Okay. And our master plans will be reevaluated about every 8 years as well. And then we'll also update the impact facility fee or facility plans as well at that time.
Okay. Thank you.
Perhaps an additional response. This table might be a good indicator of how we went through this process of defining what was just the 10-year qualifying costs and what might be costs that go beyond that 10-year period.
So have you done any calculation? This is to pay for improvements that we're putting in, parks, sewer, roads, etc. Have you calculated out what you think in the next year versus the amount of building permits that we have, what the revenue would be coming in off of this? I mean, if we had, say, 200 building permits for homes and you had 6,000, so then you're 1.2 million. But the southwest quadrant is starting to build out just a little bit. And then question is on MDUs, what's your thoughts there? So,
yeah, I mean, we have tried to make some projections of what revenue that we might be able to bring in. It is very difficult to say. Again, we've tried to be really conservative in terms of putting a number on.
Because it looks to me like you could reasonably expect 1.5 to 2 million a year, but anyway, Susie?
Well, in theory, too, if the development doesn't occur, you don't need the facilities because it's based on the fact that new development is creating the demand for these facilities. So I know
it's only on actual
build a little bit ahead for new development,
right?
But hopefully there's some coordination between that.
But just thinking ahead of the capital improvement projects that we need for the growth that we have, if we are bringing in $1.5 to $2 million a year, that will be very helpful. So
certainly it'll help, and it'll behoove us to continue to look at our rates moving forward, both in terms of impact fees and our regular rates.
Yep. Okay. Any comments or questions from the council? Okay, well, this is a public hearing, so we'll open it up to the public. Anyone who would like to come forward and make comments is welcome to do so. Hold your comments to 3 minutes and tell us your name. Seeing no one coming forward. Sorry.
I'm Jeremy Ackley. I'm with Millhaven Construction. We built several houses in Orem. I guess I'm new to this. I just found out about this today because all those letters that went out apparently didn't come to us. But I'm just trying to make sense of this. You went through it really quick. I wasn't in those other meetings, so I had a few questions. One is these impact fees. Is there something that you could show me or speak to about how those are actually going to change, or those numbers that you showed on your list? Is that what is above and beyond what is being paid right now, or is that just what the maximum fee would be? And how is there a difference between that? I'm trying to figure out how this affects the building permits, and if I'm looking at $1,000 extra on my building permit or $10,000. And I understand there's a delineation between the southeast or southwest annexation area, and that's totally fine. I'm actually doing a development in there and working with the city right now on that. But how would that affect the current building permit? Make sense?
I mean, I can attempt to start to answer that. Yeah, there at the end, you could see that citywide, on an average, using a single-family home as sort of the basis, it would be that $6,300, $6,400 amount for a single-family residential home.
We're not charging impact fees right now.
All in addition to what a building permit would be right now.
That is correct.
Is that right, Jason? So
I think to clarify that, I think right now you are paying a water rights impact fee.
Yeah.
And so so you basically would subtract that out. So this is in place of the impact fees that are being charged right now. So you wouldn't combine what you're paying now with this. So this would be the total amount that you would pay. I mean, with building permits, you might have some other, fees that go along, but as far as impact fees, this is what would be charged.
Okay, so here's a question. So if I'm paying, let's say I'm paying I do an average house and I paid $10,000 for a building permit. And it's not in the southwest, it's just in Legacy Ridge for that matter. How much more will we expect to pay for a building permit in that same subdivision? I keep looking at Jason because
it's not in South.
He's in planning and zoning. So
Well, you can just look on the screen.
So that's just in addition.
Well,
small.
So I paid $10,000 and then I'm gonna pay.
Maybe today you pay
maybe
$3,600 for a water supply impact fee, which is included in that $6,400. So it would be the difference between the $6,400 minus the. No, sorry.
They have the 9,100 versus
9,100
6,400.
minus the existing 3,600 would be the net difference.
So if he doesn't have to pay the water supply fee, he's already paying it in his impact or in his permit, then your addition is $6,400.
Well, no, because the water supply fee I think is a little bit different now than it is right now.
Okay, sorry.
It's slightly lower. It's around $600 lower.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
We should probably mention too that there's a 90-day enactment period. But
Yes.
This won't go into effect for 90 days.
So I should go out and get as many building permits as possible.
Sure.
Because it looks like
Well, if you're dealing in Southwest Orem annexation area,
yeah,
it would be beneficial.
Okay.
And your time is up, so
All right.
thank you very much.
Yeah, they're already in.
Councilmember Seastrand has a question.
Yeah, there are already Southwest area impact fees.
Sorry,
What other cities do you build in?
So we're in American Fork, Lehigh, Mapleton, Spanish Fork.
So let's just look at Lehigh. So we've got Lehigh on here.
Look at American Fork.
Okay, would you rather look at Lehigh or American Fork?
Doesn't matter to me.
I mean, are those? I'm just valid. Are those what you're used to paying? If you were building American Fork, you'll pay the permit fee plus the impact fee of about $16,000.
Yeah, and I guess if I could tell the difference between, like right now, I'm not looking at a receipt that's saying, "Hey, this is impact fees and this is what it costs to build," but the whole permit in Lehigh is generally around 19,000. 19 to 20,000, yeah.
So that would be
that'd be double what you've got, Norm.
So here's the 10,000 for the impact plus another 9,000 or so for the permit.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how they slice and dice it, but yeah, that would be similar in Lehigh. So how much of these? I know, sorry, I'm over my time, but how much of these fees are actually getting paid by the developer? Because I also develop. And it seems like a lot of times we pay for the infrastructure up front, and then we're going to be hit again when we go to pull the permit on the lot that I just developed. Is that an...
So, yeah, and perhaps Susie can explain this a little bit better, but essentially you could still put in the improvement, for example, the expanded road or a main line and get something of a credit towards the impact fee for those improvements.
Maybe can I jump in on this?
Oh, there you are.
So let's say you're doing a residential subdivision. Okay, you would still, as a developer, you would put in the local streets, you put in all your utilities, the water, the sewer, the storm drain lines, the sidewalks, the curb and gutter, all that public infrastructure. And in addition to that, you would pay the impact fee. So the improvements that you would be putting in and that you're still responsible for are referred to as project improvements. They're the infrastructure that's necessary to serve your development. Okay.
As a developer.
As a developer, right. That's right. Now, if you also construct what are referred to as system improvements, that is, improvements that are not just intended to serve your project but also other parts of the city, then potentially you would be eligible for a credit for that portion of the improvements you install.
like a reimbursement
If
agreement.
it in the impact fee facility.
Yeah, if it's in the impact fee facilities plan.
Right, and that's basically what a lot of these are for in that Southwest, because Mansell, I think, is doing
Right.
that.
So for example, Mr. Mansell, who's installing a lot of that infrastructure, water and sewer and so forth,
right,
he's going to get credits for that.
Yep.
Because those are system-wide improvements.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's fine. Okay.
Okay.
All right, well, thanks for clarifying that.
Thank you. Anyone else care to make a comment? If not, we'll go ahead and close the public comment portion of our public hearing and bring it back to the council. Any comments from the council? Yes, Councilmember Sumner.
I think it's important to make it clear, is it when you get your permit or?
Building permit.
Okay, he needs to get his building permit within 90 days to avoid this.
Yeah, you would need to get the building permit within the 90 days, right?
It's
and oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's not effort, or it's not something.
Not intention. It's actually,
it's the permit.
Yeah. And if I could point out one other thing, we made one slight change to the ordinance that's before you, and basically all it does I think it's section 14. We've just added language that's in all of our ordinances that says that this ordinance will become effective upon passage and publication in a newspaper of general circulation. So, but then it will be still 90 days before the impact fees will actually be assessed, but the ordinance will become effective upon passage and publication.
Councilor Sumner, any other?
No. So it could be longer than 90 days.
A little bit.
No, because the statute says, the Impact Fees Act says that it's 90 days from the date the ordinance is passed. That day is today.
Councilmember Lentz.
And just to clarify that, we talked about this in the work session, but when we were discussing this, Bill Bell mentioned in our, 2 weeks ago, that work session, that the date was the date of application. Now, it has to be a complete application, so it has to have all the pieces to it. You can't just submit a partially completed. But if they submit a completed application, but for some reason there's a delay with the actual issue of the permit, and it's after that 90 days.
Yeah, so meaning it's a complete application, like you said. Their plans are approved. They pay whatever fees go with that application, so that it's complete. Then yeah, they would. If they're within that 90-day period, they'd be clear.
Okay, thank you.
So is that a judgment call on Jason's part and Bill's part?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Hopefully it's not. I guess it kind of is a judgment call, but there's, what they have to be complete, so it should be an objective decision.
Any other comments from the council? Okay, I would accept a motion.
I can make one.
Okay.
I move that we adopt the impact fee facilities plans and impact fee analyses, establish impact fee service areas, and enact impact fees for water rights and water supply, treatment, storage, and distribution facilities, wastewater collection and treatment facilities, stormwater, drainage, and flood control facilities, roadway facilities, parks, recreation facilities, open space and trails, and public safety facilities on development activity in the applicable impact fee service areas.
I'll second that. We'll start with Councilmember Sumner.
Second. Oh, aye.
Aye. Third, aye.
Third, aye. Okay. Aye.
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 Ordinance passes. Thank you, Susie. Appreciate you being here. Jamie, do you have any things to bring up?
Yes. Just one item, if I may, Mayor, and I believe some of you have already been contacted by a representative from UVU relative to conversations that Cameron Martin at UVU has had with representatives of SWONA. They are, the representatives of SWONA continue to have discussion and dialogue with UVU about kind of the future of student housing in and around the Sunset Heights neighborhood. And they have expressed a continued desire on the part of SWONA to engage in a conversation about the development or exploration of creating a zoning overlay zone prohibiting high-density housing and basement apartment rentals within a specific geographic area in and around Sunset Heights.
Is that a motion?
No, it's not a motion, but it is something that I think in good faith, there's a request that's been made by UVU and SWONA to potentially explore what we might be able to do, with the understanding, and I've communicated this already to Cameron Martin, in that obviously as a council, you can express legislative intent, but you can't bind future councils into, for example, an action that would in fact restrict prospectively this kind of development. But you could express legislative intent, that it's your intent to move forward and work within, for example, certain parameters. I think you'd need to be sensitive to existing property owners who have legally already obtained a right to have an accessory structure or whatnot. And obviously there are provisions above and beyond that we need to be sensitive to. But representatives of SWONA have reached out to UVU. UVU in turn has reached out to us and are wondering if we would be willing to engage in this conversation. From my perspective, I think, to continue in good faith to have a conversation with them. Obviously, we want to work towards finding solutions that benefit all parties that are associated with that neighborhood, with the university, and of course that are in the best interest of the city. So I would never discourage or suggest we shouldn't have a conversation. Yet at the same time, ultimately, what we would discuss would be legislatively something you would consider, and I'd just like to have kind of your input in relation to that before, for example, we head down a path trying to have a conversation, but not necessarily having your consent or your willingness to move forward with something. Now, with that said, I will qualify in saying we have had conversations with representatives of SWONA in the past. I would represent that they haven't been incredibly productive. Yet at the same time, I don't think there's anything wrong with continuing dialogue.
So I would entertain a discussion. I would be fine with that.
I have a question. In President Holland's editorial or op-ed, if I remember correctly, he said something like their desire is to have 2 student housing units. They have 1 now, 2 around the campus. So would this discussion be moot, or, I mean, is there desire to have another one right now?
Yes.
So
at least what has been represented to me is the 2 developments under consideration would be obviously the current PEG development that is now subject to signature gathering, and I also understand whatever would develop on the Steele property. So those 2 developments would be part of that discussion.
So my question is, does UVU even want to discuss this?
Yeah, I think they just said they do.
UVU is the group that's kind of bringing this to us to say, we've had this discussion with SWONA. Would Orem be interested? Cameron Martin has represented, he's had this conversation with President Holland, and President Holland, too, is open to that conversation.
Councilmember Spencer has a question.
Yes, I pushed my button, so.
Okay.
You jumped out of turn there, Brent.
Councilmember McDonald.
So I think that discussion would be great. And I am concerned if we try to limit accessory apartments, because if I'm a homeowner and I might need cash, I am making accessory apartments legal.
I'll take you on a little tour on my board.
Oh, but if they're legal,
they're not.
What I'm saying, but if they're legal, then that's the problem. But if they're not legal, yes, I agree.
If I may, Mayor and I have had multiple conversations with representatives of SWONA in recent months. Part of the challenge and part of the, I think, frustration is there is an expectation on the part of some that preservation of their respective property rights will supersede the interests and property rights of others. And in those conversations, that's what we've represented is it's hard. We've got to balance the needs of everybody. Those, for example, who have legal accessory apartments, those who obviously want to maintain a single-family home and live in a neighborhood that's primarily single-family. I also have reservations and concerns associated with the enforcement. If the standard is that we are going to do all that we can every day, all day, to solve every single problem. This is a large issue. It's going to take a lot of time, a lot of manpower. I don't think we can essentially move a battleship in a day, but I think there's a willingness on our part to have discussions with the university and the neighborhood about what we can do to continually work to improve the situation. But I hesitate in saying date specific, yeah, we're going to solve this problem, because I don't think it's something that can that easily be resolved.
And one thing that I would have a concern on is if this is in relationship to the 45 days, and this is a pressure point, that would not be of an interest to me, but an interest to me would be to get all three together to talk about it, regardless of the signature gathering.
What, 45 days? What's
45 days is the signature
gathering process.
April 11th, they have to have their referendum done. I wouldn't want this to be a situation where they're saying, you know, well, we will stop if you give us all of this. I'm saying let's have an open discussion independent of the signature.
I think that'd be good. So.
Councilor McDonald had a comment. He long forgot about it. Okay. So could I represent that we'd be interested in a discussion? Is everybody comfortable with that?
Aye.
Okay. Okay. Anything else, Jamie? All right. So just so everyone knows, we're going to have a birthday party in 107, and I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Any second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.